He didn't want to be Hokage. He didn't want friends, peace, or a legacy. This ice-cold bastard looked at 5 nations and said, "Mine." Jiraiya, dead. Madara, gone. The Akatsuki, ash. He conquered an entire world, called it a slow week, and went back to his damn throne. What?
The boy stood in the center of Konoha's morning market with his arms folded behind his back, and every single person within 40 feet felt their stomach drop without understanding why. He was 8 years old. Blonde hair, whisker marks on both cheeks, orange jacket 2 sizes too large because the orphan stipend only stretched so far. He looked like a child. He stood like a throne. His eyes were wrong. The fruit vendor 3 stalls down, a woman named Akiko, who had thrown rotten persimmons at this boy 6 months ago, looked up from her register and locked gazes with Naruto Uzumaki for exactly 1.5 seconds. She would later describe it to her husband as the sensation of being weighed, measured, and found so completely insignificant that the measurement itself was an insult. Purple. His eyes had a tint of purple in them that no Uzumaki had ever carried. It lived behind the blue like a bruise behind glass. And when he looked at you, really looked at you, the blue faded and the purple came forward, and you felt something old and enormous staring through the face of a child. The crowd moved around him the way water moves around a stone. They gave him 3 feet of clearance on every side without anyone deciding to do it. Instinct. The same instinct that makes prey animals avoid the watering hole when the predator is drinking. Naruto watched them. He watched the way they scurried between stalls with their baskets, haggling over fish prices, complaining about the weather, living their small and meaningless lives in their small and meaningless village on their small and meaningless planet. He watched the way they avoided his gaze, some from hatred of the fox, some from something newer and less definable that had crept into the village's collective subconscious over the past 6 months. Something had changed about the Uzumaki boy. The village felt it the way you feel a temperature drop before a storm. He used to cry. He used to chase people for attention, beg for scraps of acknowledgement, scream that he would be Hokage someday. That boy was gone. In his place stood this thing that wore a child's face and watched the world with the patience of something that had already conquered one universe and was deciding whether this one was worth the effort. Naruto tilted his head. A smile played at the corner of his lips, thin, refined, completely inappropriate on the face of an 8-year-old. Primitive, he murmured. The word carried 0 malice. It was an observation, a classification. The same way an entomologist labels a jar, he turned on his heel and walked home. The crowd parted. They always parted now. The mindscape smelled like iron and rot. Naruto had been here before, pulled in during nightmares, during moments of extreme emotion, during the handful of times the villagers had pushed him too far and something red and hungry had surged up behind his ribs. He knew the sewer walls. He knew the dripping pipes. He knew the massive gate at the end of the corridor with its paper seal holding back a mountain of hatred. Tonight was different. Tonight he walked in on purpose. His footsteps echoed in the ankle-deep water, measured, unhurried, the gait of someone arriving at a scheduled appointment. The corridor stretched ahead of him, endless and reeking, and behind the gate 2 furnace-red eyes opened in the blackness and pinned him with the full concentrated malice of 10,000 years of rage. "You come before me willingly, boy." The voice was a landslide, a tectonic event. It shook water from the pipes and cracked the stone beneath the surface. "Has the loneliness finally broken you? Have you come to beg for my power?" The 9-tailed fox pressed its face against the bars, a muzzle the size of a house, teeth that could bite through mountains, 9 tails sweeping the void behind it like the arms of some enormous hateful star. Naruto stopped walking. He was 20 feet from the gate. The fox's hot breath washed over him, copper and fire and ancient killing intent that should have dropped a child to his knees, should have shredded his sanity, should have reduced him to a weeping, trembling thing on the floor. Naruto looked up at the 9-tailed fox, and he laughed. Oh ho ho ho. The sound was wrong. It was wrong in the way that a perfectly tuned piano playing in a burning building is wrong. Refined, musical, Belonging to someone who finds genuine amusement in the struggles of lesser creatures, Kurama's eyes narrowed. What? You know? Naruto said, and his voice had changed. The childish rasp was gone. In its place, silk over steel, every syllable placed with the care of a jeweler setting stones. I have been tolerating this arrangement for 8 years. 8 years of your pathetic attempts to influence my emotions. 8 years of your red energy seeping through my system like some infection. 8 years of sharing a body with what amounts to a very large, very angry house pet. The fox's tails went still. You dare. I dare everything, Naruto said. I conquered galaxies before you were a whisper in a sage's dream. I erased civilizations that made your precious elemental nations look like a child's sandbox. I destroyed a planet, an entire planet, because a monkey irritated me. He raised one hand, and the mindscape broke open. Light erupted from his body, violet, white, crackling with an energy that had never existed in this dimension. The sewer walls dissolved into void. The pipes melted. The water evaporated in a flash of steam that cleared instantly, replaced by an emptiness so vast and complete that both Naruto and the fox hung suspended in a space that had become infinite. Naruto's form shifted. The orange jacket burned away. The blonde hair smoothed back. His body elongated, refined, became something sleek and white and terrible. Purple biogems gleaming at his wrists and crown, a tail unwinding behind him like a whip made of starlight. His face becoming angular and cold and perfect in the way that a blade is perfect. True form. Lord Frieza stood in the mindscape of Naruto Uzumaki and the nine-tailed fox, beast of apocalypse, creature that had flattened mountains and drowned coastlines and killed the fourth Hokage, looked at what had been sleeping inside its container and felt an emotion it had never felt before. Terror. Pure. Animal. Overwhelming terror. Kurama lunged. Instinct overrode everything else. Fight or flight chose fight because there was nowhere to flee. A paw the size of a stadium came down like a meteor, claws extended, enough force behind it to crack a continent. Frieza caught it on one finger. The impact sent a shockwave through the infinite void. Purple rings of displaced energy racing outward in every direction. The fox's paw pressed down with everything it had, 9 tails bracing against the nothing beneath it, muscles bunching, chakra flaring red and enormous. And the finger did not move. Frieza looked up at the paw above him with an expression of mild interest. "Oh my," he said. "Was that your best?" He flicked one finger, one motion. The fox launched backward through the void like it had been fired from a cannon, spinning, tumbling, tails tangling, a howl of shock and pain ripping from its throat as it crashed through layers of psychic space that broke around it like glass. Kurama hit something, a wall of the mindscape that reformed to catch it. And before it could recover, Frieza was there, above it, floating with his arms crossed and his tail swaying in a slow, lazy arc behind him. Death beam. A thread of purple light, thin as a needle, bright as a sun, lanced down and punched through Kurama's right forepaw. The fox screamed. Actually screamed. A sound that would have leveled buildings in the physical world, reduced here to an echo that shook the reformed mindscape. Another beam. Left forepaw, another. Right haunch, another. Left haunch. Kurama collapsed, pinned by pain in 4 limbs, its massive body spread eagled in the void, 9 tails thrashing weakly. Red chakra hemorrhaged from the wounds, trying to heal, trying to recover. And Frieza watched the process with academic interest. Regeneration, he noted, useful. I will be taking that. He descended. His feet, small, white, pristine, touched down on the bridge of Kurama's nose. The fox's eyes, each one the size of a lake, rolled to focus on the tiny figure standing between them. The killing intent that radiated from that figure was worse than anything Kurama had ever produced. It was cold where the fox's was hot. It was absolute where the fox's was wild. It was the intent of something that had killed billions and felt nothing. Something that had watched worlds burn and sipped wine while the light died. "Listen to me, you oversized flea," Frieza said. His tail tapped against the fox's snout twice, lazy, proprietary taps. "Your previous arrangement has been terminated. You belong to Lord Frieza now. You will give me your energy when I ask for it. You will amplify my reserves when I require amplification. You will sit in this cage, and you will be grateful that I allow you to continue existing." Kurama's lips pulled back. A growl built in its chest, defiance, ancient pride, the refusal of a creature that had never bowed to. Barrage Death Beam. 50 points of light, 50 needle-thin beams of purple energy. They rained down on the fox's body like a hailstorm from hell, each one punching through fur and muscle and chakra with zero resistance. Kurama thrashed, howled. 9 tails beat the void in agony. Frieza watched. He did not look away. He did not look bored. When the beam stopped, Kurama was still. Its breathing came in enormous, shuddering gasps. Its eyes, those furnace-red eyes that had terrified every living thing they'd ever focused on, were fixed on the small white figure standing on its nose with something that looked very much like submission. "I will ask once more," Frieza said, "and understand, my patience is a gift I give freely, but I only give it once. Do you submit?" Silence. The void hummed. Kurama closed its eyes. "Yes," Frieza smiled. Genuine. Warm in the way that a furnace is warm. Functional, dangerous, and absolutely unconcerned with your comfort. "Excellent decision," he said. "Now then, let us discuss the terms of your service." Naruto woke up. He stretched. His joints popped. The apartment ceiling stared back at him, water-stained, cracking at the corners, the ceiling of a slum unit assigned to a village pariah. He looked at it with the expression of a man who has been given a broom closet and told it's a palace. "Temporary," he murmured. He got out of bed, washed his face, and dressed in the cleanest of his 3 identical outfits. Orange. Hideous. He would change that soon enough, but for now, appearances needed maintaining. The village expected a loud, obnoxious orphan. They would get one for a little while longer. He walked to the Hokage's office. The secretary tried to stop him. He looked at her, and she found something else to do very fast. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, the god of shinobi, the professor, looked up from his paperwork and saw Naruto Uzumaki standing in his doorway. The old man smiled. It was the tired, guilty smile of a man who knows he has failed someone and compensates with small kindnesses. "Naruto, my boy, what brings you here so early?" Naruto walked to the center of the room. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, a posture the 3rd had never seen from this child, a posture that belonged in a war room on a general, on someone who had spent lifetimes commanding others. "I would like to enroll in the academy," Naruto said. "Early admission, effective immediately." The 3rd blinked. "The academy? Naruto, you're only 8. The standard enrollment age is—" "I am aware of the standard," Naruto interrupted. His voice was polite. His eyes were ice. "I am requesting an exception. I trust that will be acceptable." Something in the 3rd's chest tightened. He looked at the boy, really looked, and for just a moment, for just a fraction of a breath, he thought he saw purple where there should have been blue. Of course, Naruto. I'll have the paperwork drawn up by today," Naruto said. "I'll begin today." He turned and walked out. The 3rd sat at his desk for a long time after that, his pipe unlit between his fingers, staring at the empty doorway with the expression of a man who has just realized that something fundamental has changed, and he missed the moment it happened. The academy was tedious. Naruto sat in the back row of Iruka's classroom with his chin resting on one hand, watching the instructor explain basic chakra theory to a room of children who could barely sit still. He listened the way one might listen to a toddler explaining how the sun works, with polite, distant amusement. Chakra. The lifeblood of this world's power structure. A combination of physical and spiritual energy molded through hand signs and channeled into techniques. Naruto understood it perfectly. He also understood that it was, compared to ki, roughly equivalent to a toy sword compared to a nuclear warhead. But toys had their uses, and he was nothing if not adaptable. He mastered the clone jutsu in one afternoon. The transformation jutsu took 10 minutes. The substitution, 5. He performed each one with immaculate hand signs and zero wasted chakra. And when Iruka praised him with surprise in his voice, Naruto smiled politely and said, "Thank you, Iruka-sensei," and felt nothing. The other children avoided him. They could feel it too, that same wrongness the market vendors felt, that same ancient pressure that leaked from him like radiation. Sasuke Uchiha, the class prodigy, the brooding heir of a dead clan, looked at Naruto once during the first week, and their eyes met, and Sasuke looked away first. His jaw was tight, his hands curled into fists on his desk. He never tried again. The months passed. Naruto graduated at the top of the class at age 9, the youngest graduate in Konoha history since Itachi Uchiha. When the headband was tied around his forehead, he looked at himself in the mirror and thought, a collar on an emperor. How quaint. But the collar served a purpose. For now, the team assignments came 3 days after graduation. Naruto's team was called Team 11. His sensei was a special jonin named Yamanaka Fu, a tall woman with platinum hair and the cold eyes of a Yamanaka clan interrogator who'd been reassigned to genin duty as what was clearly a punishment detail. His teammates were a boy named Kaido, civilian-born, eager, forgettable, and a girl named Sora, Hyuga branch family, talented, terrified of everything. Fu looked at her 3 genin on the first day and did what every jonin sensei did. She underestimated them. She looked at Naruto, 9 years old, short, blonde, whisker marks, and saw the village pariah given a genin team as a political gesture. All right, she said. Standard introduction. Name, skills, goals. You first, Blondie. Naruto looked at her. He was sitting on the training post with his legs crossed and his chin on one fist, a pose of absolute leisure that should have been impossible to maintain on a narrow wooden beam. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said. His voice carried zero enthusiasm, zero childish energy, zero of the loudness the file had warned her about. My skills exceed anything you are capable of evaluating. My goal is dominion. Silence. Kaido laughed nervously. Sora's Byakugan flickered on instinctively, then off. She looked at his chakra network for a split second and gone pale. Fu's expression did not change. She was trained for this, trained to remain neutral in the face of bravado, arrogance, and childish posturing. Cute, she said. Let's see if your skills match your ego. Combat test. 3 minutes. Come at me. Kaido and Sora moved into stances. They'd practiced. They'd trained. Naruto remained seated on the post. Begin. Fu said. Kaito charged. He was fast for a genin. Quick feet, decent form, a kunai held correctly. He lasted 2 seconds. Naruto raised one finger in a pulse of ki, invisible, compressed, the barest whisper of his true power. Hit Kaito in the chest and launched him backward 30 feet into the tree line. He hit a trunk and slid down it, unconscious, before he reached the ground. Sora activated her Byakugan fully. What she saw made her step backward. Her mouth opened. Her hands trembled at her sides. What are you? She whispered. Naruto looked at her with something approaching pity. Go sit down, little Hyuga, he said. You are beneath this exercise. Sora sat down. Her legs gave out more than she chose to, but the result was the same. Fu had seen both exchanges. Her body was in combat stance. Her pupils were dilated. Every instinct she had, every sensor-trained nerve in her Yamanaka body was screaming at her that the child sitting on the training post was dangerous on a level she did not have a frame of reference for. What? She said, and her voice was steady, but her hands were in her pockets to hide the trembling. Exactly did you just do? Naruto tilted his head. That smile again, the one that was all wrong. A love tap, he said. Shall I demonstrate something more substantial, Sensei? No, Fu said. Immediately, without thinking, she cleared her throat. That's enough for today. Dismissed. Report here tomorrow at 7. Naruto stepped off the post, floated really, his feet touching the ground a moment too late for a normal jump, and walked past her toward the village. As he passed, close enough to touch, she felt the air temperature drop by 10 degrees. Delightful chat, Sensei, he said, without turning. I look forward to our professional relationship. Fu stood in the training field for 15 minutes after he left. Then she went directly to the Hokage's office and filed a report that contained, among other things, the phrase, recommend immediate reclassification. This is a Kage-level threat in a child's body. The third read the report. He put it in a drawer. He locked the drawer. He did nothing. The first 3 D-rank missions were a formality. Naruto performed them with the air of a CEO filing his own taxes, an act so far beneath him that completing it was itself a statement of patience. He pulled weeds, he caught cats, he painted fences. He did each one in under 4 minutes using telekinesis that he kept just subtle enough to look like wind-styled chakra manipulation to anyone watching. Fu watched. She took notes. She said nothing. Kaito recovered from his first day introduction with a bruised sternum and a new understanding of his place in the team hierarchy. He took to calling Naruto boss without any irony whatsoever. Sora never activated her Byakugan near Naruto again. She trained hard, spoke little, and always positioned herself behind him in formation, a strategic decision that she would later admit was pure survival instinct. The first C rank came on a Tuesday. A protection detail. Escort a wealthy merchant named Izamu Goza, a textile magnate from the land of rivers with an ego that outweighed his bodyguards, from Konoha's gates to his compound in the southern delta. 2 days travel. Minimal threat assessment. Standard Genin team mission. Izamu Goza was a man who had purchased the respect he could not earn. Fat where it counted, in the wallet, and thin where it mattered, in the spine. He wore silk in layers that made him look like a walking curtain display. He carried a fan despite the mild weather. He had 3 personal servants and made sure everyone within earshot knew their names were less important than his schedule. He took one look at Team 11 and his lip curled. A woman, 2 children, and... His eyes found Naruto, found the whisker marks. His expression curdled into something between disgust and amusement. And the village's pet demon. Marvelous. I pay premium rates for premium protection, and they send me daycare. Fu's jaw tightened. She opened her mouth to give the standard diplomatic response. It's fine, Sensei. Naruto's voice was pleasant, light. The voice of someone who has just been handed something fragile and is deciding how many pieces to break it into. The merchant is entitled to his opinions. Goza snorted. At least it has manners. Come along then. Try to keep up. And don't touch any of my possessions, boy. They walked. For 6 hours they walked. Goza complained about the pace, complained about the heat, complained about the quality of the road. 3 times he made comments about Naruto, about the whisker marks, about the village's poor judgment, about keeping animals in human clothing. Kaido's fists clenched tighter each time. Sora's eyes went to Naruto's back, watching, waiting for something she could feel building. Naruto walked in silence. His hands were clasped behind his back. His pace was even. His expression held that same thin smile. He was counting. At the 6th comment, something about Naruto's parentage that does not bear repeating, they were on a stretch of road between 2 forested hills, empty for a mile in every direction. The merchant's servants walked ahead. Fu was 10 meters to the right, scanning the tree line. Kaito and Sora flanked the formation. Naruto stopped walking. The air pressure changed. It was instant, like someone had sealed the entire stretch of road inside a glass jar and started pumping the air out. Kaito's ears popped. Sora staggered. Fu whipped around, her sensor abilities flaring, and what she felt hit her like a physical blow. Power. Unimaginable, boundless, wrong power, radiating from the small blonde figure who had stopped in the middle of the road. The birds stopped singing. The wind died. Even the clouds seemed to pause. Goza took 3 more steps before he realized his escort was no longer moving. He turned, his mouth open to deliver another complaint, and he met Naruto's eyes. The blue was gone, completely gone. In its place, purple, solid, absolute, glowing faintly with an inner light that turned the air around his face into a faint violet haze. His smile had widened just slightly, and his head had tilted just slightly, and every single thing about his body language said the same thing. You have miscounted how many chances you had. The answer was 3. You are on 7. Oh my, Naruto said. It seems you have forgotten your place in the universe. Goza's mouth worked. His fan dropped. His servants, experienced men who had worked for dangerous people, were already backing away. They could feel it. The servants could feel what the master could not yet comprehend. What? How dare I am Izamu Goza of the Goza Trading? Death beam. 2 words, a flash of purple light, thin as a thread, fast as thought. It entered Goza's right kneecap and exited the other side, leaving a hole the width of a finger and a cauterized tunnel of ruined joint. The merchant's leg buckled. He screamed, a high, wailing sound, the sound of a man who has never felt real pain experiencing it for the first time. Before he hit the ground, a second beam took his left knee. Goza collapsed. Face first into the dirt of the road he'd been complaining about for 6 hours. His screams were continuous, raw, guttural, the sounds of an animal. Naruto walked toward him. His pace was the same as it had been all day. Unhurried, measured, pleasant. He reached the writhing merchant and crouched down, one arm resting on his knee, his face inches from Goza's tear-streaked, dirt-smeared, contorted features. I believe introductions are in order, Naruto said. His voice was warm, friendly even. My name is Lord Frieza. You will address me as such, or as Emperor, or as Lord Naruto if you find the first name confusing. What you will never again do is address me as boy, animal, demon, or anything else that suggests you believe yourself to be my superior in any capacity. Goza was hyperventilating, snot and tears mixed with dirt on his face. His hands clawed at the road. Please, my legs, I need. Death beam, right shoulder. The merchant's arm went limp. His scream went up an octave. You were saying? Naruto prompted. Lord Frieza, please, I'm sorry. Naruto smiled. It was the smile of a teacher praising a slow student. Better. Now then. He stood, brushing imaginary dust from his knee. You own 17 textile mills across the land of rivers, 3 shipping companies, 2 banks that are textile mills in name only. I know this because I researched you thoroughly before accepting this mission. You will sign every single asset over to a holding company whose details my accountant will provide within the week. Goza was sobbing, nodding, agreeing to anything. And one more thing, Naruto said, and raised his finger one final time. Death beam. Left shoulder, Goza's body jerked, both arms gone, both legs gone. 4 holes, 4 beams, 4 pieces of a man who would never walk again, never hold a pen again, never raise a fan to shade himself from mild weather again. Naruto straightened his collar. He turned to his team. Fu stood frozen. Her hand was on her weapons pouch. She had made zero move to intervene. She was a sensor. She could feel the gap between her own power and what was radiating from this child. And the gap was an abyss, and she had chosen correctly to remain very, very still. Kaido was on his knees. He'd vomited. His face was white. Sora was standing, pale, trembling, but standing. Her Byakugan was off. She was looking at Naruto with wide, wide eyes that held something between terror and something else. Something that would take her years to name. We will be detouring, Naruto said pleasantly. I have some administrative matters to attend to. Sensei, please ensure the merchant's wounds are bandaged. I prefer my assets alive, if diminished. He began walking south. After a moment, Kaito stood. After another moment, Sora followed. Fu looked at the sobbing merchant on the ground, looked at the boy walking away, and made the fastest cost-benefit analysis of her career. She followed. The debrief with the Hokage lasted 4 hours. Naruto was present for none of it. Fu delivered her report in a voice that was steady and professional, and completely at odds with the way her hands gripped the arms of her chair. The third listened to everything. Then he dismissed her. Then he sat alone in his office and smoked 3 pipes in succession, and stared at the photograph of the 4th Hokage on the wall and said to the empty room, Minato, what have we sealed inside your son? The photograph did not answer. Within the week, Izumo Goza's assets, all 17 mills, all 3 shipping companies, both banks, were transferred to a holding entity registered in the Land of Waves under a name that would take intelligence analysts 6 months to trace back to a 9-year-old in Konoha. The Frieza force had its first revenue stream. The recruitment began in earnest. First, Yamada Rin, missing name, former Iwagakure accountant who had fled after discovering her Kage was embezzling war funds and deciding that the information was worth more than her loyalty. She was hiding in a border town, selling financial analysis to criminals for rice money. When Naruto found her, he walked in her safe house at 3 in the morning. She was awake, sleeping habits ruined by years of paranoia. She reached for her kunai. Naruto sat down at her table, folded his hands in front of him, and said, I require someone who can manage an empire's treasury. You will do this for me. In exchange, you will receive protection from Iwagakure's Hunter Nin, a salary that makes your current income look like pocket change, and the privilege of serving something that will reshape this world. Rin looked at the child sitting at her kitchen table. She was 34 years old. She had seen warlords and Kaja and missing Nin with bounties that could buy countries. She had never felt a presence like this. Who are you? She asked. I am Lord Frieza, Naruto said, Emperor of everything I survey, and I am surveying you. She signed the next morning. It was the smartest decision she would ever make. Second, Tetsuo, a weapons dealer operating out of the Land of Iron's black markets, a man who could acquire anything from a kunai to a warship if the price was right. He came to Naruto. He'd heard rumors, whispers in the underground about a new player, a child who dismantled a merchant lord in broad daylight and now owned half the Land of River's economy. Tetsuo wanted protection. What he received was a contract written in terms so absolute that signing it was less a business arrangement and more an oath of fealty. He read the terms. He looked at the child sitting across from him in a hover chair that seemed to be made of materials that did not exist. He signed. Third, Yamanaka Fu herself. This one was different. This one was personal. 2 weeks after the Goza incident, Konoha's Jonin Command dispatched a retrieval order. Naruto Uzumaki was to be brought in for psychological evaluation and potential restriction of mission privileges. Fu was ordered to deliver him. She found Naruto in Training Ground 44, the Forest of Death. He was sitting on the highest branch of the tallest tree, legs crossed, hover chair floating beside him like a loyal pet. He was reading a scroll, something he'd acquired from a sealed section of the library that no genin should have been able to access. "Sensei," he said, without looking up. "You've come to deliver bad news. I can tell by the tension in your chakra." Fu landed on a branch 10 meters away. Her hand was near her weapons pouch. Her mind was racing through contingencies, Yamanaka mind transfer techniques, paralysis seals, the emergency flare that would bring Anbu in 45 seconds. She looked at Naruto and knew, with absolute certainty, that 45 seconds was 44 seconds too late. "The Hokage wants you in for evaluation," she said. Naruto turned a page. "Denied." "Naruto, Lord Frieza," he corrected, mildly. Fu's jaw tightened. "This is a direct order from..." Naruto raised one finger. Purple light gathered at its tip. Just a spark. Just a promise. He pointed it at her. His eyes were still on the scroll. "I am going to present you with an opportunity, Sensei," he said. His tone was conversational. "You are a talented censor, an experienced interrogator, and a competent field operative who has been wasted on genin duty as punishment for a political mistake 3 years ago. I know about that, by the way. I know about all of it." Fu said nothing. Her mouth was dry. "You have 2 options. Option 1, you attempt to follow through on this retrieval order, and I demonstrate why that order is unenforceable. Option 2, you return to the Hokage, explain that I could not be located, and begin your new career as my intelligence director." The spark at his fingertip pulsed. "Just once. I will give you exactly 1 minute to decide," he said, and went back to his scroll. Fu stood on that branch for 47 seconds. She weighed her career, her loyalty, her oaths, her future. She weighed the feeling she'd had since the first day, since the combat test, since the road, the absolute bone-deep certainty that she was standing next to something that would consume this world whether she helped it or resisted it. On second 48, she dropped to one knee. "What do you need first, Lord Frieza?" she said. Naruto closed his scroll. He looked at her for the first time since she'd arrived, and his smile was genuine, warm in the way that lava is warm. "Intelligence," he said, "on everything. Start with sound." The Northern Territories fell without a single battle that anyone saw. It happened like a disease. Slow at first, then all at once. The land of hot water went silent on Konoha's communication network. Then the land of frost. Then a chunk of the land of rice that officially belonged to Otogakuri's sphere of influence, but had always been more aligned with whoever offered the most protection. Konoha sent scouts. The scouts came back confused. Trade was flowing, the villages were peaceful, the infrastructure was improving. The only change anyone could identify was a new administrative structure that had appeared overnight, staffed by professionals who smiled too much and never quite answered direct questions about who they reported to. Fu's intelligence network, built with Yamanaka clan methods she'd adapted for non-clan use, fed information back to Naruto at a rate that would have made the Anbu's intelligence division weep with envy. She identified power players, choke points, revenue flows, and potential threats with the efficiency of someone who had finally been given work worthy of her skill. Tetsuo provided weapons and technology. Rin managed the money. Fu mapped the board. And Naruto, Lord Frieza, sat at the center of it all. A 10-year-old in a hover chair, watching his empire grow with the patience of someone who had done this before and knew exactly how the pieces fit. By his 10th birthday, unremarked upon by anyone in Konoha because nobody had ever celebrated it, he controlled the economic output of 3 minor nations and had intelligence assets in 7 major villages. He was bored. "Tell me about the snake," Naruto said. Fu laid out the file. "Orochimaru, former Sannin, former Leaf Jonin, S-rank missing nin, wanted in every major nation for crimes that filled 6 pages of small print. Current location, Otogakure, the village hidden in sound, a newly formed village built in a network of underground bunkers in the land of rice. His capabilities? Naruto asked. Immortality techniques. Body hopping, forbidden jutsu mastery that exceeds any other living shinobi. He has an army of experiments, sound nin trained from childhood, curse seal enhanced, loyal through a combination of fear and biological control. His personal power is estimated at low Kaji level, but his cunning makes him an S-rank threat regardless. Naruto was silent for a moment. His tail, he manifested it physically now, inside his private quarters. A white bio-armored whip that rested around the arm of his chair tapped the armrest twice. His scientists, he said. The ones conducting the experiments, how many? 14 primary researchers, dozens of assistants. They specialize in genetic modification, seal manipulation, and, Fu hesitated, human enhancement. Naruto smiled. How industrious. I want them. All of them. All of them. And the research, and the facilities, and the snake himself if he cooperates. Fu's face betrayed nothing. She had learned, in the months since she'd sworn loyalty, to keep her reactions internal. And if he resists, then I remove his limbs and give him the choice again, Naruto said. I find that approach clarifies priorities. The invasion of Otogakure began at dawn and was finished by lunch. Naruto arrived alone. He descended from the sky, literally descended, floating, arms crossed, his true form sleek white frame catching the morning light as he dropped through the clouds above the primary entrance to Orochimaru's compound. The sentries on the surface, 4 Chunin-level sound nin in camouflaged observation posts, saw him and reached for their communication seals. A death beam severed the communication array built into the cliff face. The metal sparked and went dead. 4 heads turned upward. A boy, no, a creature, white-skinned, purple-marked, hovering in the air with a tail drifting behind him like a banner, was looking down at them with the expression of someone choosing which door to use. Good morning, Naruto called down. His voice carried perfectly across the distance. I will be inspecting this facility today. You may stand aside, or you may be removed. These are the only options. 1 sentry fired, a sound release technique that should have shattered eardrums at that range. The wave of compressed air roared upward toward the floating figure. Naruto raised one hand. The sound wave hit his palm and dispersed, absorbed into ki reserves so vast that the technique barely registered as input. Removed it is, he said pleasantly. He raised 2 fingers. Barrage death beam. Purple light rained down. 16 beams in 2 seconds. Each sentry took 4, 1 per limb. They collapsed at their posts, alive, armless, and legless, screaming in voices that carried down into facility below. An alarm sounded. Somewhere deep underground, feet were running. Naruto descended to the entrance, a reinforced steel door built into the cliff face, sealed with 3 layers of barrier jutsu. He examined it the way one might examine a mildly interesting menu. Then he pressed 1 finger against it. Death beam. The beam punched through all 3 barriers and 12 inches of steel like they were rice paper. A hole appeared, small, glowing at the edges. Naruto tilted his finger slightly and drew a circle. The cut steel fell inward with a crash that echoed through the underground tunnels beyond. He stepped through. The corridor inside was lit with green, fluorescent tubes that gave everything a sickly hue. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The floor was metal grating over deeper tunnels below. It looked like the inside of a body, functional, organic, designed by someone who cared more about utility than aesthetics. Naruto wrinkled his nose. Appalling decor, he muttered. 3 sound nin rounded the corner ahead, full combat gear, weapons drawn, curse seals already spreading across their skin in flame-like patterns that boosted their chakra to Jonin level. They saw the figure in the corridor. They registered, small, white-skinned, floating 2 inches off the ground, tail swaying, eyes purple and cold. Intruder, the lead nin barked. Take him down, they charged, all 3. Fast, boosted by curse seals, enhanced by sound techniques, driven by programming and fear. The lead nin's arms separated into a chain of bone blades. The second opened her mouth for a sonic scream. The third formed hand seals for a wind technique that would turn the corridor into a razor tunnel. Naruto yawned. He raised one hand and closed it into a fist. All 3 sound nin stopped. Mid-air. Mid-attack. suspended by telekinetic force that gripped every molecule of their bodies and held them as frozen as insects in amber. Naruto floated forward between them. He examined the curse seal spreading across the lead-9 skin with academic interest, the way a collector examines a mediocre specimen. Sloppy work, he said. Effective for this world's standards, I suppose. The power amplification is impressive in a primitive sort of way. But the psychological leash? Inelegant. He released them. They fell in a heap of limbs and confused gasps, curse seals receding, bodies trembling. "Where is your master?" Naruto asked. "The snake. Point me in the correct direction, and I will let you keep your arms." They pointed. Naruto moved deeper. The facility was vast, tunnels branching into laboratories, holding cells, training halls, dormitories. Sound Nin met him at every intersection. Some attacked. Those ones lost limbs. Some fled. Those ones were permitted to flee. Some, the smart ones, pressed themselves against the walls and lowered their eyes. Those ones lived intact. He found the laboratories first. Rows of glass tanks, bodies suspended in green fluid, test subjects in various stages of modification. Scientists in white coats scrambling to destroy files, wipe hard drives, eliminate evidence. Naruto's telekinesis swept the room. Every scientist froze. Every shredder stopped. Every hand was pulled away from every destroy button and held in place by invisible force. "Good morning," Naruto said, floating into the room at eye level with the nearest researcher, a bald man with round glasses and a face that suggested he had long ago made peace with the moral implications of his work. "I am your new employer. You will continue your research under my direction. Your funding will increase tenfold. Your previous master is being replaced. Questions?" The scientist's mouth opened, closed. He looked at his colleagues, all frozen, all wide-eyed, all doing the same math. Who are you?" the scientist managed. "Lord Frieza," Naruto said. "Emperor, conqueror, your new priority. Now then, where's Orochimaru's personal chamber?" The main chamber of Otogakure's primary facility was a cathedral, 100-foot ceilings, pillars carved with snake motifs. A throne, an actual throne carved from purple stone and inlaid with gold, sat at the far end atop a raised platform. The room was designed to intimidate, to impress, to remind anyone who entered that they were in the presence of something vast and ancient and terrible. Naruto found it adorable. Orochimaru sat on his throne with one leg crossed over the other, his yellow eyes fixed on the entrance, his pale face arranged into the closest thing it could manage to amusement. He had heard the alarms. He had felt the disturbances. He had watched through his surveillance seals as this child, this impossible, unknown quantity, dismantled his perimeter defenses and walked through his facility like a landlord inspecting a new property. Behind him stood Kabuto, silver-haired, glasses glinting, hands already glowing green with medical chakra, ready for battle. Beside the throne, the Sound Four, Jirobo, Kidomaru, Tayuya Sakon, each in Curse Seal Stage 1, weapons deployed, barriers ready, 6 people. 3 of them were S-rank threats. The other 3 were A-rank minimum. Naruto floated in through the main entrance and stopped in the center of the chamber. His tail swayed. His arms folded across his chest. He looked at the throne, at the man sitting in it, and his eyes traveled the scene with the air of someone examining a painting they've decided to purchase. "Oh ho ho," Naruto laughed. "A throne. How charming. You even have subordinates arranged in a defensive formation. Very pretty." Orochimaru's tongue flickered. His eyes narrowed. He was reading the figure before him, analyzing chakra signature, body language, threat level. His sensors were returning data that made 0 sense. The chakra reading was minimal, Genin level at best, but beneath it, like an ocean beneath a sheet of ice, something else. Something that his senses could barely perceive. Something that made the survival instincts he'd honed over 6 decades whisper very loudly that he should not be sitting in this room. "What a fascinating vessel," Orochimaru said, leaning forward. His voice was honeyed, seductive, the voice of a man who had convinced countless others to give him their bodies. Such power hiding in such a small frame. "Tell me, child, what are you? Not a Jinchuriki, or at least, not just that. Something else lives in that body alongside the fox." Naruto tilted his head, observant, for a primitive. Orochimaru's smile widened. "I've been called many things. Primitive is new, amusing." "I'm glad you're amused," Naruto said. "It makes what comes next slightly less grim, for you at least." He uncrossed his arms. Let me explain your situation with complete clarity, Snake. Your facility is mine. Your scientists are mine. Your research is mine. Your sound four, he glanced at the four enhanced warriors flanking the throne, are mine. Everything in this underground cesspool of mediocre ambition transfers to me effective this moment. Your only choice is whether you continue breathing. The chamber went still. Kabuto's medical chakra flared brighter. The sound four tensed, Kidomaru's additional arms reaching for webs, Tayuya's fingers twitching toward her flute, Jirobo's feet spreading into a wider base, Sakon's secondary head whispering something. Orochimaru laughed. Long and genuine and delighted. The laugh of a man who had just encountered the most interesting thing in years. You are magnificent, Orochimaru breathed. Whatever you are, I want it. I want to study it. I want to understand it. I want to wear it. His form blurred. The snake was fast, faster than any human should be, body modification techniques pushing his frame beyond natural limits. His jaw unhinged, the Kusanagi blade erupting from his mouth like a silver tongue, aimed at Naruto's chest. Naruto did not move. The blade hit his chest and stopped. The tip of the Kusanagi, a sword that could cut through anything, that had pierced Susanoo, that was considered an absolute weapon, pressed against Naruto's true form's bioarmor and achieved nothing. A spark. A scrape. The sound of metal meeting something harder than metal had any right to be. Orochimaru's yellow eyes went wide. Naruto looked down at the blade pressing harmlessly against his sternum. He looked back up at Orochimaru, at the extended jaw, the weapon, the commitment to a full-speed attack that had accomplished absolutely nothing. Oh dear, Naruto said. Was that your best technique? He reached down and gripped the Kusanagi between two fingers. His hand closed. The blade, the unbreakable blade, the legendary blade, shattered. Fragments fell to the stone floor in a cascade of metal music. Orochimaru recoiled. His jaw reformed. His eyes were wide, genuinely wide for the first time in decades. He scrambled backward, and the scramble was real. There was no performance in it. No cunning positioning, like just the raw retreat of something that had just grasped the size of its miscalculation. Sound 4, Orochimaru barked. Full transformation. Now! They moved, all four. Curse seals erupted to stage 2, bodies warping, growing, becoming monstrous versions of themselves. Kidomaru became a 6-armed giant, webs of golden chakra already spinning. Jirobo doubled in size, skin going red, fists cratering the floor. Tayuya's summoning flute hit her lips. The Doki began materializing, 3 massive demons with clubs raised. Sakon's merged form split and remerged into their 2-headed battle state. Kabuto hung back. Smart boy. Naruto watched the transformation sequence with his hands behind his back, his tail up against his calf, a metronome of patience. Are you quite finished? He asked when the last of the curse seal changes settled. Kidomaru fired first, a volley of golden arrows, each strong enough to pierce steel, 20 of them in a spread pattern that covered every escape vector. Nova Strike. Naruto's body erupted in purple energy, a cocoon of ki so dense that the air itself burned around him, and he rocketed forward through the volley. The arrows hit the energy field and vaporized. His body struck Kidomaru like a meteor striking a mountainside. The impact sent the 6-armed warrior through the chamber wall, through stone, through reinforced steel, through 2 additional walls beyond that, a tunnel of destruction marking his exit. He did not get up. Jirobo charged, a wall of muscle and rage, fist cocked, enough force behind the swing to level a city block. Naruto caught the fist. One hand. The impact sent shockwaves across the chamber, pillars cracking, the ceiling raining dust, the throne wobbling on its platform. Adequate strength, Naruto said, holding the fist. For a planet. Shall I show you what galactic strength feels like? He squeezed Jirobo's fist, and the arm attached to it compressed. The sound was wet and absolute. The man screamed. Naruto released him, and Jirobo fell backward, clutching a limb that was no longer limb-shaped. Tayuya's Doki were upon him, 3 summoned demons swinging clubs that each weighed more than a building. Naruto floated upward between the swings, like his body moving with the grace of something that had fought Super Saiyans and found them more challenging than this. Death Saucer. A disc of ki formed above his raised finger, spinning, purple-edged, humming with a frequency that made teeth ache. He flicked it sideways. It passed through all 3 Doki, horizontally. At the waist, 6 halves hit the ground. Tayuya's flute fell from numb fingers. Sakon came from behind, both bodies merging and separating and attacking in a pattern designed to confuse and overwhelm through sheer unpredictability. Naruto's tail snapped backward without him turning. The ki-enhanced tail, harder than diamond, faster than thought, caught Sakon across the torso and sent both merged bodies into the far wall with enough force to crater stone 10 feet deep. They did not emerge. 4 seconds. The entire Sound Four, Orochimaru's finest warriors, his elite guard, his last line of defense, dismantled in 4 seconds. Naruto turned back to Orochimaru. The snake Sannin was pressed against the wall beside his broken throne. His regeneration was working, new arms already forming from the stumps where Naruto had. Wait, Naruto hadn't taken his arms yet. That was about to change. Death Beam, right arm, gone at the shoulder, cauterized, the forming limb severed before it could complete. Death Beam, left arm, same result. Orochimaru screamed. It was the sound of pride dying, of a man who had cheated death 100 times, meeting something that death itself might flee from. Death Beam, right leg. Death Beam, left leg. Orochimaru, the Sannin, the immortal, the monster, the genius, slid down the wall in a heap of truncated limbs and spilled blood. His yellow eyes were wide. His mouth was working. His regeneration was trying, desperately trying. And Naruto fired a death beam into each stump as it began to reform. Cauterizing, preventing, denying, Naruto floated down. He landed beside the limbless snake and crouched. That same position he'd used with Goza, one arm on his knee, face close, eyes locked. "Let me tell you a story," Naruto said. His voice was warm, conversational. "In my previous life, I fought beings that destroy stars. I lost. I died. I was resurrected. I died again. Through all of that, through every humiliation, every defeat, every indignity, I learned one thing." He leaned closer. "That I would never lose again." Orochimaru stared. His breathing was ragged. His eyes, those analytical, cunning, ancient eyes, were doing something they had never done before. They were accepting. "Your scientists work for me now," Naruto said. "Your facilities belong to me. Your research continues under my direction. You, personally, will serve as my chief researcher. You will develop technologies and enhancements for my empire. You will have unlimited funding, unlimited subjects, unlimited resources, and in exchange," he stood, "I will allow you to continue your pursuit of immortality, because frankly, a mind like yours is too useful to waste." Orochimaru's mouth opened, closed, his tongue, the only limb left to him, flickered across dry lips. "And if I refuse?" Naruto raised one finger. Purple light gathered. He pointed it between Orochimaru's eyes. "Then I erase you from existence," he said, "and I find another snake to fill the position. There are always snakes." Silence. The chamber groaned, structural damage from the fight settling, stone shifting, dust drifting. "You are extraordinary," Orochimaru whispered, and there was something in his voice that had never been there before, something that sounded almost like reverence. "Yes, I accept your terms, Lord Frieza." Naruto smiled. He patted Orochimaru's head once, a gesture so condescending that it would have made the Sannin bite his own tongue in rage an hour ago. Now, armless and legless and pinned beneath the weight of absolute power, he simply closed his eyes. "Excellent," Naruto said. "Kabuto," he turned to the silver-haired medic who had been standing very, very still in the corner for the entire fight. "Reattach his limbs. I need him functional by tomorrow. There is work to do." Kabuto adjusted his glasses. His hands were trembling. He nodded. "Yes, Lord Frieza." The acquisition of sound changed the calculus of Naruto's empire overnight. Orochimaru's scientists, under new management, with new resources, with new direction, began producing. The curse seal research was repurposed. Instead of creating disposable soldiers through fear and pain, the enhancement technology was refined into something more elegant, voluntary, reversible, effective. Orochimaru himself, once he could walk again, proved to be exactly what Naruto had predicted. A genius liberated from his own worst impulses. Given direction, given purpose, given something bigger than himself to serve, the snake's mind turned from self-preservation to innovation. He was still Orochimaru, still creepy, still obsessive, still a man who would dissect his own grandmother for interesting data, but he was a contained Orochimaru. Leashed, productive, Kabuto became Naruto's personal physician. A man smart enough to read the room and switch loyalties at the perfect moment was too valuable to waste. The Sound Four, once healed, became Naruto's personal guard detail. Their loyalty transferred with surprising ease. They had served Orochimaru out of fear, and Naruto offered them fear plus competence plus a future. It was an upgrade. Within 6 months of the sound acquisition, the Frieza force controlled 7 minor nations' economies, 1 hidden village's military assets, a research division that outpaced every major village's R&D department, an intelligence network that spanned 2 continents, and a weapons manufacturing capacity that could arm 5,000 soldiers overnight. Naruto was 11. He was also bored again. The Akatsuki's attention was inevitable. An organization built on collecting Jinchuriki would eventually notice that one particular Jinchuriki had gone rogue, and had done so in a fashion that made every other missing nin in history look like a child running away from home. Pan sat in his tower in a megakure. The reports arrived weekly. The northern expansion, the disappearance of sound, the economic consolidation that was slowly strangling Fire Country's trade routes. The Rinnegan eyes saw all of it, and behind those eyes, Nagato's calculating mind weighed options. He dispatched Kakuzu and Hidan, 2 of the strongest. The zombie combo, an immortal fanatic and an unkillable miser. Together, they had never failed a retrieval. Together, they had brought down targets that made Kaj look tame. They would be enough. They intercepted Naruto in a wasteland between the northern territories and Fire Country's border. An expanse of cracked earth and dead trees, a buffer zone that both sides had left fallow. Useful for nothing, remarkable for nothing. Naruto was walking, alone. No guard detail. He dismissed them 2 miles back because their presence irritated him during his thinking hours. He was in his human form, blonde hair, blue eyes, orange jacket that he still wore sometimes out of a perverse nostalgia for the performance of weakness. Hidan dropped from the sky first. A crater, a scythe, a man covered in ritual scars and a grin that split his face in half. Finally! Hidan roared. A Jinchuriki. Jashin-sama will feast tonight. I've been waiting for a real sacrifice, not these pissant bounty targets, an actual Jinchuriki. Kakuzu landed behind Naruto, silent, 5 hearts beating in his stitched-together body. His eyes, those flat, ancient green and red eyes, assessed the blonde child standing between them with the air of a man calculating a price tag. Small, Kakuzu said. Young. This is the one who's been consolidating the north? Who cares? Hidan was already spinning his scythe. Jashin-sama doesn't give a shit about politics. Let's bleed him and get paid. Naruto stopped walking. He did not turn around. He stood very still in the center of the wasteland, his hands in his pockets, his blonde hair shifting in a breeze that had just appeared from nowhere. The temperature dropped. The dead trees nearest to him began to lean away, their trunks bending at impossible angles, pushed by a pressure that was building in the air around the child. You know, Naruto said, and his voice was different now, lower, colder, carrying that silk over steel quality that turned every word into a weapon. I was having a rather productive afternoon, planning, strategizing, enjoying the silence of this miserable stretch of dead earth. And you, he turned his head, just slightly, enough for one purple eye to fix on Hidan, have ruined it with your screaming. Hidan laughed. Oh, it talks. It's a tough guy. I love the tough ones. They scream the loudest when Jashin-sama. You dare. 2 words. But the way they landed, the weight of them, the absolute authority behind them, stopped Hidan mid-sentence. It was involuntary. His mouth closed without him deciding to close it. His body went rigid without him deciding to go rigid. For just a moment, just a fraction of a second, something ancient and overwhelming pressed down on his consciousness like a boot on an insect. Naruto turned fully. His hands came out of his pockets. His eyes, both of them, were solid purple now, glowing. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed deeper, sharper, less like birthmarks and more like war paint. You dare, he repeated, speak to me in such a manner? You, a screaming monkey with a scythe and a god complex? You dare approach me, as though you are the predator in this scenario? The air pressure dropped. The dead trees nearest to them snapped, just broke, trunks splintering under invisible force. The cracked earth beneath Naruto's feet began to crater, rings of fractured stone spreading outward in concentric circles. Kakuzu took a step back. His 5 hearts were racing, all 5 of them, independently, driven by a survival mechanism that his body understood better than his mind. Hidan, Kakuzu said, something is wrong. Shut up, Kakuzu. I'm not afraid of. Naruto raised one hand. Han rose from the ground. No contact, no technique visible. The immortal simply lifted. His feet left the earth. His arms spread wide, his scythe dangling from numb fingers. Telekinetic force gripped every joint, every limb, every point of articulation in his body and held them in place. Hidan's eyes went wide. He struggled, thrashed, his mouth opened to scream. Naruto closed his fist slightly. Hidan's right arm separated from his body, clean, bloodless at the separation point, cauterized by so fine it cut at the molecular level. The arm fell. The scythe fell with it. Hidan screamed. "Oh good," Naruto said. "You can still feel that. I was curious, like immortality is such an interesting condition. It guarantees that you will experience every single thing I do to you, with zero chance of the sweet release of unconsciousness." His fist moved, left arm, separated, falling. Hidan's scream went up 3 octaves. "This," Naruto said, walking toward the suspended, armless, screaming immortal, "is what happens to insects that dare address their emperor with disrespect. This is the lesson you will carry, potentially forever, given your condition." Right leg, left leg, a torso and a head floating in midair, shrieking at a volume that should have torn vocal cords but wouldn't, because nothing could tear this man's vocal cords because he was immortal and every piece of him stayed alive and aware. Naruto floated up to eye level. He looked into Hidan's purple, veined, tear-streaming face with the expression of a man examining a moderately interesting specimen. "You mentioned a god," Naruto said. "Jashin, was it? Let me tell you something about gods, little zealot. I have killed beings that called themselves gods. I have destroyed civilizations that worshipped beings that called themselves gods. Your Jashin, whoever or whatever that is, would kneel before me if we ever met, because there is only one absolute power in any universe I inhabit, and that power is mine." He dropped Hidan. The 4 pieces hit the ground. The head continued screaming. Naruto turned to Kakuzu. The stitched-together bounty hunter had activated. All 5 hearts were online: fire, wind, lightning, water, earth, each manifesting as a masked creature emerging from his back, his body expanding, shifting, becoming the 5-entity combat form that had killed Kage. 5 hearts, Naruto said, his head tilting with interest. "How industrious. Let's see how many it takes before you reconsider your life choices." Kakuzu attacked. All 5 masks fired simultaneously. A convergence of elemental destruction aimed at a single point, the combined power of 5 Jonin-level techniques hitting one target at once. Naruto raised 2 fingers. Death Ball. An orb formed between his fingertips. Small, the size of a marble, swirling with purple and black and orange, colors that didn't belong in this world spectrum. He flicked it forward casually, the way one might toss a coin. The marble-sized death ball met the 5-element convergence and ate it, absorbed it, grew larger. The elements, fire, wind, lightning, water, earth, were consumed, their energy adding to the death ball's mass as it punched through the combined attack and continued forward. Kakuzu dodged, barely. The death ball passed him by 6 inches and struck the ground behind him. The explosion was not loud, it was silent. A perfect sphere of annihilation, 50 meters in diameter, appeared where the impact occurred. No fire, no debris, just absence. A hemispherical crater carved from the earth as though reality itself had been scooped away. Kakuzu stared at the crater, then back at Naruto. "What?" Kakuzu said, and his voice, for the first time in perhaps a century, carried something that sounded like fear. "Are you?" "I am Lord Frieza," Naruto said, "and I am running out of patience for this particular diversion. You have 5 hearts. I have 5 fingers. Let's see which runs out first." He pointed his index finger. Death Beam. The first masked entity, fire, shattered. The beam punched through its core, through the heart it contained, through the back of Kakuzu's expanded form. The mask fell. 1 heart stopped. Kakuzu roared and sent the remaining 4 forward. Wind from the left, lightning from the right, water from above, earth from below. 4 simultaneous attacks from 4 vectors, covering every escape route. Naruto pointed 4 fingers simultaneously. Barrage Death Beam. 4 beams. 4 hearts. 4 explosions, purple light punching through each mass entity at its core. The beams arrived before the attacks did. Faster than elements, faster than jutsu, faster than thought. Kakuzu's expanded form collapsed. 4 hearts dead. Only the original remained. The one in his chest, then the one that was him. The last heart, the oldest heart. The bounty hunter fell to his knees. His body was contracting, losing mass, losing form, the stitches that held him together fraying as the hearts that powered them died. He was shrinking, weakening, becoming mortal. Naruto walked toward him. Each step crunched on the dead earth. "Tell me," Naruto said, standing over the kneeling, dying man, "who sent you? The organization, the one with the red clouds." Kakuzu looked up. His eyes were fading, the green dimming, the red going brown. He was dying. For the first time in perhaps 200 years, he was actually finally dying. "Akatsuki," he managed. "We were sent for the Nine Tails." "I see," Naruto said. "And who leads this organization?" Kakuzu coughed. Blood, actual blood, warm and mortal, spattered the ground. "Pine," he said, "in a Megakure. He calls himself God." Naruto's smile returned, that genuine, warm, terrible smile. "Another God," he said. "How delightful. I shall have to pay him a visit." He raised two fingers, pointed them at Kakuzu's head. The last beam, quick, clean, merciful in its efficiency, ended 200 years of life in a flash of purple. Kakuzu's body hit the ground and did not move again. Naruto turned back to where Hidan's pieces lay. The head was still alive, still conscious, still screaming, still cursing. The eyes tracked Naruto's approach with a fury that had nowhere to go. "As for you," Naruto said, looking down at the severed head, "I believe I'll keep you. A screaming head in a jar makes for an excellent conversation piece." He waved one hand. Telekinesis gathered the pieces, head, torso, 4 limbs, and suspended them in a cluster above the ground. "Someone will collect you shortly," he said. "Do try to keep the noise to a minimum. It irritates me." He walked away. Behind him, Hidan's head continued screaming profanity at the sky. The Akatsuki felt it that same day. Both life signs vanishing from their network within minutes of each other. First Kakuzu, then nothing from Hidan's tracking seal that would indicate survival. Pan stood in his tower. The rain fell around a Megakure. His Rinnegan eyes, 6 paths worth of vision, focused on the distance, on the direction of Fire Country, on the place where 2 of his members had been erased. "Konan," he said. The blue-haired woman appeared beside him, paper wings folding into her back. "I felt it," she said. "The Jinchuriki did this, the Nine Tails host." "Alone?" "Alone." Silence. The rain fell. Paper dissolved and reformed in Konan's hair. "Do we send another team?" she asked. Pain did not answer for a long time. The Rinnegan stared into the rain. Behind those eyes, Nagato, the real Nagato, the emaciated man in his walking chair, felt something he had not felt since Hanzo had killed Yahiko. Uncertainty. "We wait," Pine said finally. "We observe. We gather more intelligence." It was the first time the Akatsuki had ever hesitated. Naruto's empire continued to grow. By age 12, the Frieza force controlled territories spanning from the northern coastline to the southern border of the Land of Wind. The economy of the elemental nations was reshaping around his influence. Trade routes redirecting, resources flowing in patterns that enriched his holdings and slowly strangled those who had denied him. His palace rose in the land of rice, where sound had been, rebuilt from the ground up by Orochimaru's architects and Tetsuo's engineers. It was a structure unlike anything the elemental nations had ever seen. Smooth white walls, curved spires, elevated walkways, and hovercraft docking platforms. It looked alien because it was alien. Naruto had described the Frieza Force command ships of his previous life in exhaustive detail, and his builders had translated that vision into stone and steel and chakra-enhanced materials. The interior was immaculate. White floors, purple accents, a throne room that could seat 200, and was designed so that every eye in the room would be drawn to one point, the elevated chair at the far end, where Naruto sat in his hover chair with his legs crossed and his tail draped over one armrest. The force numbered in the thousands now. Soldiers, some recruited, some defected from failing minor villages, some captured and converted. Scientists, engineers, spies, administrators. An entire governmental apparatus built from nothing in 4 years by a child who remembered how to run an interstellar empire. Fu ran intelligence from a wing of the palace that was sealed with 18 barrier techniques and required Naruto's personal authorization to enter. Rin managed a treasury that made the Land of Fire's GDP look modest. Tetsuo supplied weapons to half the continent from factories that never stopped producing. Orochimaru ran R&D from a state-of-the-art facility that made his old underground bunkers look like storage closets. And at the center of it all always at the center, always the axis around which everything rotated. Naruto sat and planned and waited. He was waiting for Konoha. He knew they would come. He had been raised there. He knew their pride, the will of fire, the belief in the village's superiority, the conviction that every shinobi who bore that headband was bound to it forever. He had left without permission. He had taken their jinchuriki, their weapon, with him. He had built an empire on their doorstep. They would come. He was looking forward to it. The intelligence reached Konoha in fragments. First, trade reports. Revenue declining in the northern territories, merchants switching suppliers, shipping routes, rerouting around new checkpoints that answered to an entity called the Force with zero further elaboration. Then, mission reports. A team sent to investigate the land of rice found Sound's old entrances sealed and rebuilt. New construction, new personnel, headbands they didn't recognize, white with a purple sigil that looked like nothing in any village registry. Then, the disappearances. 7 Konoha operatives sent into Northern Territory over 2 years. 3 returned. The other 4 simply stopped reporting. Their last known coordinates mapped a perimeter, a border that, once crossed, resulted in either silence or a return trip with the operative's memory of the past 72 hours completely erased, and at the center of it all, a name, a face. A file that Tsunade, 5th Hokage, 2 years into her tenure, already exhausted by the job, pulled from the archives and read 3 times in succession with her SAGA cup growing steadily emptier. Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki, graduated at 9, went off-grid at 10, current status unknown. Last confirmed location, land of rice. Jiraiya, Tsunade said, staring at the photograph clipped to the file, a 9-year-old with whisker marks and blue eyes that already held purple shadows. Tell me everything. Jiraiya sat across from her desk. He looked old, tired. His spy network, the most extensive in the elemental nations, had been struggling for 2 years against a counterintelligence apparatus that was always one step ahead, always better resourced, always more ruthless. He calls himself Lord Frieza, Jiraiya said. His organization is called the Frieza Force. He controls 7 nations economically, 3 militarily. He absorbed Otogakure, the entire village, including Orochimaru. Tsunade set down her cup. Orochimaru works for him? Willingly, from what my sources indicate. The snake's research output has tripled in the past year. He's producing enhancement technology, medical innovations, weapon systems, all under this kid's direction. Naruto is 12 years old. He is 12 years old, Jiraiya confirmed, and he's the most dangerous single entity on this continent. Tsunade looked at the ceiling, her fists clenched, the desk beneath them cracked, hairline fractures spreading through the wood. Kakashi, she said. The silver-haired Jonin materialized from the corner. He'd been there the entire time, reading the file over her shoulder, his single visible eye betraying nothing. Hokage-sama. Assessment. Kakashi was silent for a long moment. When he was in the academy, he said, I observed him once at the Third's request. His chakra reserves were strange, massive, but with a quality I couldn't identify. The Third's file noted behavioral changes starting at age 8. Sudden maturity, sudden competence, as though, he paused, as though someone else woke up inside him. The Nine Tails? The Nine Tails doesn't make children speak in complete sentences with perfect grammar and the body language of a feudal lord. This is something else. The room was silent. Tsunade's office, the Hokage's office, once occupied by gods and legends, felt very small. Options, Tsunade said. Retrieval, Jiraiya said, if possible. And if not possible? Nobody answered that question. We go ourselves, Tsunade said. You, me, Kakashi, full combat readiness, Anbu escort. She stood, her chair scraped backward. If he's still the kid I appointed a team for 3 years ago, we bring him home and figure out what happened. If he's something else, he is something else, Jiraiya said. Tsunade, I need you to hear me on this. My sources, the ones who came back, describe his power as incompatible with this world. Energy techniques that have never been documented. Transformations that break the laws of chakra. One source described him destroying a mountainside with a beam of light from his finger. Tsunade looked at the photograph again. A 9-year-old boy. Whisker marks. Almost a smile. Then we go and we see it for ourselves, she said. And we bring enough firepower to give us options. The strike team assembled in 3 days. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Two Anbu captains, Tiger and Bear, selected for their speed, their resilience, and their willingness to retreat when ordered. They left Konoha at dawn. The palace was worse than the reports suggested. They saw it from 12 miles away, rising above the tree line like a monument to something wrong. White spires catching the morning sun, the architecture smooth and curved in ways that defied the elemental nation's building traditions. It did not look like it belonged on this planet. It looked like someone had reached into a different reality and pulled a piece of it into this world. The approach took 2 hours. The outer territories were clean, organized, productive, villages running smoothly, citizens going about their business, soldiers in white and purple uniforms patrolling with the discipline of career military. Everything they passed was functional, efficient, and deeply, fundamentally alien to the way any hidden village operated. The gates appeared, 50 feet tall, white metal, seamless, hinged, guarded by 12 soldiers who stood at perfect attention with weapons that glowed faintly with energy that was unmistakably different from chakra. The soldiers saw the Konoha headbands. They straightened. One of them spoke into a device at his collar. "The Leaf delegation has arrived," the soldier said. "Lord Frieza has been expecting you. Proceed to the throne room." Jiraiya's jaw tightened. "He knew we were coming." "He has known for 3 days," the soldier said. His voice was polite, professional, the voice of a man who served willingly and well. "Lord Frieza asked me to convey his compliments and note that your approach could have been more subtle." His words were, "Tell the Toad Hermit that his spy network needs maintenance." Jiraiya said nothing. His hands were in his pockets. His face was stone. They walked through the gates, through the courtyard, vast, paved in white stone, lined with training grounds where soldiers drilled in formations that moved with machine precision. Through the main entrance, a set of doors that opened without being touched, sliding apart on mechanisms that hummed with energy. Through corridors that were clean and bright and smelled like nothing. No incense, no wood, no humanity. Just clean air recycled and filtered, the environment of a space station translated into terrestrial architecture. The throne room opened before them. It was enormous. 100 meters from door to throne, lined with pillars of white stone, the ceiling arching overhead in a dome that held windows of tinted glass casting purple light across the floor. Guards lined the walls, 30 of them standing at attention, weapons across their backs. And at the far end, elevated, illuminated by a shaft of natural light from the dome above, a hover chair. In the hover chair, a boy, 12 years old, blonde hair, whisker marks, an orange jacket. He still wore the jacket, in what could only be a deliberate mockery of what he had once been. He sat with one leg crossed over the other, one arm on the armrest, his chin resting on his knuckles. His eyes were purple, solid, glowing faintly. His tail, white, segmented, gleaming, hung over the side of the chair and swayed in a slow, lazy arc. He was smiling. "Oh ho ho ho," Naruto said, and the sound carried perfectly across the 100-meter expanse, amplified by the room's acoustics, filling every corner, touching every ear. The Slug Woman, the Toad Hermit, and the Copy Ninja. All three. I'm flattered. Tsunade stopped 20 meters from the throne. Her fists were at her sides. Her heels cracked the white stone beneath them with every step's impact. "Naruto," she said. Her voice was command grade. Hokage voice, the voice that made Jonin snap to attention. "You are a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. You left without authorization. You have committed acts of violence against clients, against civilians, against fellow shinobi. You are ordered to return to the village immediately for no." One word, no embellishment, no explanation. The syllable landed like a stone into water, creating ripples of silence that spread through the throne room. "That wasn't a request," Tsunade said. Her chakra was rising, the green glow of Yin Seal reserves beginning to manifest at her forehead. Naruto uncrossed his legs. He stood from the hover chair, a smooth motion, unhurried, the movement of someone who has all the time in the world and knows it. "Let me explain something to you," Naruto said. He stepped off the hover chair's platform and floated, feet leaving the ground by an inch, then 2, then hovering at eye level with the standing shinobi 20 meters away. "I do not belong to your village. I did once, or rather, the vessel I inhabit was property of your village. That arrangement has been terminated." He floated forward toward them. His hands went behind his back. His tail rose and curled behind him, regal, proprietary, the posture of a king approaching subjects. "I am Lord Frieza," he continued, "Emperor of the Frieza Force, ruler of 7 nations, commander of 12,000 soldiers, master of the snake Sanin Orochimaru. I am the single most powerful being on this planet. A planet I consider to be a minor holding in what will eventually be a much larger portfolio." He stopped 10 meters from the woman, purple eyes burning. The air around him was thick with presence, a weight that pressed on the lungs, that made the Anbu captain's knees tremble, that made Kakashi's Sharingan itch behind its covering. "You are standing in my throne room," he said, "uninvited, armed, making demands. This would be suicidal even if you understood what you were facing. You do not understand. You cannot understand. And so," that smile again, "I will give you a demonstration." Jiraiya moved first. The Toad Sage, decades of combat experience, reflexes honed against S-rank threats, launched himself forward at full speed. Rasengan formed in his palm in the span of a breath, blue, spinning, a sphere of compressed chakra powerful enough to bore through solid steel. Naruto's tail snapped forward. It caught Jiraiya across the midsection like a whip. The sound was a crack that echoed off the walls, a sonic boom in miniature. Jiraiya launched sideways, through a pillar, through the next pillar, through the wall beyond. Stone exploding outward as his body carved a tunnel through the throne room's architecture. One hit, one of the legendary Sanin, dismissed with a single strike from an appendage. "Tiger! Bear! Now!" Kakashi's voice, urgent, commanding. The 2 Anbu captains moved. Twin blurs, one left, one right, approaching from vectors designed to force a defense split. Tiger drew twin Tanto blades, chakra enhanced, glowing blue. Bear's hands formed the seals for an earth technique that should have risen beneath Naruto's hovering form and caged him. Naruto raised one hand and closed it. Both Anbu stopped, mid-leap, mid-attack, pinned in the air by telekinetic force so absolute that their bodies could not even tremble. Their eyes, the only thing still mobile, went wide behind their masks. Naruto pushed his hand down. Both Anbu hit the floor. The stone cratered, twin impacts, face first, pressed against the ground by invisible force so enormous that their armor cracked and their masks shattered, and their consciousness fled between one heartbeat and the next. 2 more of Konoha's finest. Dismissed, without being touched. Kakashi unveiled his Sharingan. The red eye spun, tracking, analyzing, reading the movements of energy around Naruto's form. What it showed him, he took a step back. Involuntary. The Sharingan could not copy what it could not understand. The energy around Naruto was not chakra. It was something else. Something that his eye could perceive but his brain could not process. Like trying to read a book written in a language that your eyes can see but your mind cannot decode. "What?" Kakashi started. Naruto's tail moved again. It was faster than the Sharingan, faster than a response. It crossed the distance between them in a time frame that Kakashi's legendary eye could see beginning and could see ending, but could not track the middle of, and it struck him across the ribs. The sound was bad. The sound of bone giving way to force that outclassed it by orders of magnitude. Kakashi went airborne, a ragdoll trajectory that ended against the far wall of the throne room, his body hitting stone and staying there, pressed into the indentation his impact created. He slid down. He was conscious, barely. His breathing was wet. His ribs were compromised. 3 of Konoha's finest shinobi. 5 seconds, 3 strikes. Tsunade was alone. She stood in the center of the ruined throne room. Pillars broken, floor cratered, walls cracked, with her fists clenched and her chakra blazing. The yin seal was fully released now. The pattern spreading across her face, purple lines marking the release of 100 stored chakra reserves. Her body was at maximum capacity. Her healing factor was active. Her strength was peaked. She was the strongest physical fighter in Konoha's history. Her punch could level mountains. Her durability was legendary. She had faced S-rank threats and broken them with her bare hands. She punched. Full force. Full commitment. A straight right aimed at Naruto's floating face, backed by the strength of 100 technique. Enough kinetic energy behind it to shatter a mountain range. Enough concentrated force to turn anything it contacted into particulate matter. Naruto raised one finger. Her fist met his index finger. The shockwave was catastrophic. Every window in the dome above them shattered. The pillar remnants disintegrated. The floor beneath them splintered in a 30-meter radius. The guards on the walls braced against the pressure wave. The air itself compressed and rebounded. Tsunade's fist, containing everything she had, everything she was, the pinnacle of human physical achievement, pressed against one raised fingertip and went nowhere. Naruto looked at her over the top of her own fist. His expression was patient, interested, the way you might look at a child who has just tried their hardest and still fallen short. Impressive, he said. For this world, that is genuinely impressive. You should be proud. He pushed. One finger, one motion. His index finger pressed forward against her fist. Tsunade's arm buckled. Her feet dug trenches in the stone floor. 20 meters. She slid backward 20 meters from the force of one finger pushing against her full-strength punch. Her arm screamed. Her tendons stretched. Her bones flexed at the edge of breaking. She stopped, panting. Her arm hanging at her side, functional but trembling. The Yin Seal's healing factor worked overtime, repairing microfractures, restoring torn muscle fibers. "You," she gasped. "What the hell are you?" Naruto descended. His feet touched the floor for the first time since the confrontation began. He stood in the center of his ruined throne room, the destruction around him a testament to what had been a 5-second engagement, and rolled his neck once. "You monkeys never learn," he said. "You cling to your pathetic will of fire. Let me show you the cold reality of the universe." He did not transform. He raised a single finger to the sky. Energy gathered. It started small, a point of light above his fingertip, the size of a marble, orange and purple swirling together. Then it grew, the size of a ball, the size of a person, the size of a house. The temperature in the room climbed. The guards evacuated, professionally, quickly, following emergency protocols that had apparently been planned for this exact scenario. Within 15 seconds, the throne room was empty, except for the Konoha team. 3 incapacitated, 1 standing, 1 floating, and the growing sphere of annihilation above Naruto's finger. The size of a building. The size of a city block. The ceiling was gone, vaporized by the proximity of the energy sphere as it rose through the dome and into the open sky above. The sunlight that had been streaming through the windows was blotted out, replaced by the orange-purple glow of something that should not exist. Tsunade looked up. Her healing factor was still running. Her body was still functional, but her mind, her calculating, experienced, Hokage-trained mind was doing math. She was calculating the energy output, estimating the yield, projecting the blast radius. The numbers she was getting back were impossible. "The death ball," Naruto said. His voice was flat, absolute. The voice of a man who has made a decision and is now implementing it. Sufficient to erase this palace, the surrounding territories, and approximately 60% of the land of rice from existence. The sphere continued growing, the size of a stadium now. The edges crackled with lightning that struck the ground around the palace in random arcs, each bolt cratering stone and turning sand to glass. "I could redirect it," Naruto continued, "toward Konoha. It would arrive in approximately 4 minutes at its current capacity. The village, every building, every person, every tree, every stone would cease to exist. The crater would fill with groundwater within a year. In a century, no one would remember it had been there." Jiraiya had crawled back into view, bloodied, ribs broken, one arm limp but conscious. His face was locked in an expression that transcended fear into something purer. He was looking at the sphere above Naruto's finger and understanding, for the first time, that the intelligence reports had undersold the threat by a factor of infinity. Kakashi was conscious against the wall. His Sharingan, still spinning, still recording, was capturing data that his mind could not process. He was shaking. The copy ninja, the man of 1,000 jutsu, the student of the 4th, was shaking. The Anbu remained unconscious. Perhaps that was mercy. Tsunade stood alone in front of it all, her Hokage robes tattered, her Yin Seal burning chakra at a rate that would exhaust her in minutes, her body intact but her authority destroyed. Naruto looked at her. The sphere stabilized above him, massive, pulsing, impossible. He lowered his gaze to meet hers, and his purple eyes held zero malice, zero anger, zero emotion of any kind. "I will give you exactly 1 minute to bow to your emperor," he said. "If you refuse, I will erase the Hidden Leaf Village from the face of this planet. I will give you the minute because I am generous. Do not mistake generosity for mercy. I have none." His voice carried across the ruined throne room like a verdict. Tsunade's fists shook at her sides. Jiraiya's voice came from behind her, broken, rasping. Tsunade, she did not turn. The village, Jiraiya whispered. The people, the children, the academy students, the hospital. Shut up, Tsunade said. Her voice cracked. Shut up, Jiraiya. She looked at Naruto, 12 years old, blonde hair, whisker marks, the child she had signed a team assignment for, the child whose file she had read and felt nothing about, the child who had been alone in that village for 8 years while she drank herself into oblivion across 3 countries. That child was gone. In his place, an emperor, a force, something wearing a boy's face the way a hand wears a glove, functionally, temporarily, because it serves a purpose. The minute was ticking. Naruto watched them with the patience of a man who already knew the answer. The death ball hung above the world like a second sun, wrong-colored, crackling, promising an end to everything within reach. 30 seconds left. Kakashi's breathing was shallow against the wall. Jiraiya was trying to stand. The Anbu were dreaming of something gentler than this. 20 seconds. Tsunade's hands opened, her fists unclenched. The yin seal's glow faded, her chakra withdrawing, her battle stance collapsing, her body language shifting from resistance to something else. 10 seconds. She looked at Naruto one more time, searched his face for something, anything, that belonged to the child that should have been. She found nothing. 5 seconds. Tsunade, the 5th Hokage of the village, hidden in the leaves, the strongest kunoichi in the history of the elemental nations, the granddaughter of the 1st Hokage, the woman who had sworn to protect her village with everything she had, dropped to one knee. Her head bowed, her hands pressed against the cracked stone floor. Her forehead touched the ground. Behind her, Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, the author, the legend, the man who had trained a Hokage and loved a princess and wandered the world for 60 years as its greatest adventurer, lowered himself. Slower. His injuries made it difficult, but his knees found the ground. His head dropped. Kakashi, against the wall, his body broken and his pride in worse condition slumped forward. It was as close to a bow as his damaged frame could manage. The throne room was silent. Naruto looked at them, the 3 most powerful shinobi in Konoha's active roster, on their knees on his floor in his palace, and his smile widened. The death ball above him pulsed once, then began to shrink, smaller, smaller, until it was a marble again, and he pressed it between his fingertips and it vanished. Energy absorbed back into his body as though it had never existed. The temperature normalized, the sky returned to blue, the lightning stopped. Oh ho ho ho, Naruto laughed. The sound filled the throne room, rich, genuine, the laugh of a man who has just received exactly what he expected and is pleased that the universe continues to meet his standards. How delightful, he said. A wise decision. I'm genuinely pleased. It would have been such a waste to destroy a village with such interesting specimens inside it. He returned to his hover chair, sat down, crossed his legs, rested his chin on his knuckles. Now then, Naruto said, looking down at the kneeling Konoha team from his elevated position. Let us discuss the terms of Konoha's integration into my empire. I believe you'll find them quite reasonable. I am, after all, a generous emperor. His tail swayed behind the chair. The most generous you'll ever serve. Tsunade's fingers pressed into stone floor. A tear fell. Just one. Naruto pretended he did not see it. The world changed that day. Reports spread through the elemental nations like wildfire through dry brush, fragmented at first, then cohering into a narrative that made intelligence chiefs and village leaders go pale. The Hokage had knelt. 3 of Konoha's most legendary shinobi had engaged a 12-year-old boy and been dismantled in seconds. A sphere of energy had hung above the land of rice that, according to sensor types, who felt it from 300 miles away, contained enough destructive potential to reshape the continent's geography. The will of fire had met something that burned hotter, something that burned everything. Konoha's integration was the first of what would eventually be many. Tsunade returned to the village with terms that she presented to the council in a voice that allowed zero debate. Tribute, intelligence sharing, non-aggression guarantees, and the formal acknowledgement of Lord Frieza's sovereignty over the northern territories. The council argued. Of course they argued. The elders, Homura, Koharu, Danzo, raged about precedent, about pride, about the will of fire. Tsunade let them finish. Then she said, "He held enough power to erase this village in one hand. We were less than insects to him. We bow or we cease to exist. Those are the options. Choose." They chose. Within a month, Konoha was paying tribute to the Frieza force. Within 3 months, joint operations were being planned, missions that served Naruto's interests while maintaining the fiction of Konoha's independence. Jiraiya threw himself into intelligence work with a desperation that burned his spy network like fuel. He needed to know more, needed to understand what had happened, what force had awakened inside Minato's son. He traveled. He researched. He chased legends of reincarnation across 5 continents. He found nothing, because the answer was beyond this world. Kakashi healed. His ribs knit. His pride took longer. He spent 3 weeks standing at the memorial stone, staring at his teacher's name, thinking about the boy he had failed to know, the student he had never taken, the son of his sensei who had become something beyond comprehension. "I'm sorry, sensei," he said to the stone. "I don't think any of us could have changed this." The stone, like all memorials, said nothing back. In the palace, Naruto sat in his throne room and reviewed the week's reports. Trade revenues up 14%, military recruitment exceeding projections, Orochimaru's latest enhancement program showing results in the test group, 3 more minor nations sending diplomatic envoys requesting integration terms. Everything was proceeding according to plan. He set down the report and looked out through the open dome above. The sky was clear, blue, unmarked by death balls or destruction. Birds flew past. Clouds drifted. The world turned the way it always had, indifferent to the fact that its hierarchy had fundamentally changed. Lord Frieza. Fu appeared at his side, silent, professional, her intelligence tablet in hand. "The Akatsuki have recalled all external operations. Our sources indicate they're consolidating in Omegakure." "Naturally," Naruto said. "Their collection mission becomes significantly more complicated when their target is more powerful than their entire organization combined." "Shall I increase surveillance?" "Increase it. I want to know the moment they move. Every member, every location, every plan." Fu bowed and vanished. Naruto looked at the sky again. His tail tapped the armrest, a slow rhythm, patient, the heartbeat of an empire. "This world," he murmured. "So small, so fragile, so mine." He closed his eyes. Behind them, in the mindscape, in the sealed space between reality and the fox's cage, Kurama pressed himself into the furthest corner of his prison. 9 tails wrapped around his body. His furnace-red eyes stared into the void with an expression that on any other being would have been called prayer. The fox had served creatures of power before. He had been sealed inside hosts who feared him, and hosts who used him, and hosts who tried to befriend him. He had never, ever served something that he genuinely believed could unmake him at the molecular level. He stayed very still. He stayed very compliant. He waited. Everyone waited now. The other Kaj received the news through various channels: diplomatic, intelligence, rumor, and each responded according to their nature. The Raikage, a fourth of that name, a man whose fists had cracked mountains and whose speed had outrun lightning, slammed his desk hard enough to break it in half. He raged. He threatened. He declared that Cloud would never bow to a child, to a freak, to an abomination. He mobilized 3 battalions. He received a single message the next morning, delivered by a messenger hawk that bore the Frieza Force sigil and a scroll containing 6 words: "Reconsider, or I come personally." The Raikage broke another desk. He demobilized the battalions. He did not admit, even to himself, what that decision meant. The Mizukage, Mei Terumi, 5th of that name, a woman whose bloodlines could melt mountains, read the intelligence reports with narrowed eyes. She calculated. She weighed options. She sent a diplomatic envoy with a letter that was in equal parts a greeting, a threat assessment, and an offer of alliance. Naruto read her letter and smiled. "The mist woman has sense," he told Fu. "Reply with terms, favorable ones. I prefer intelligent subordinates." The Tsuchikage Noki, 3rd of that name, the ancient fence-sitter who had seen more wars than most nations' histories recorded, received the reports and did nothing. He was old. He had felt power before, A's power, Madara's power, the combined forces of 4 nations in a great war. He read about the death ball. He read about the dismantling of 3 Sannin-level threats in 5 seconds. He did nothing because he recognized, with the wisdom of extreme age, that some forces were beyond opposition. You waited. You watched. You survived. The boy will overextend, he told his council. All empires do. We wait for the crack. He did not genuinely believe there would be one. The Kazekage, Gaara, fifth of that name, a Jinchuriki like Naruto, a child who had once been a monster and chosen to be something else, read the reports in silence. His sand swirled around him in agitated patterns, his eyes ringed with sleeplessness that would never fade, fixed on the photograph attached to the file. Blonde hair, whisker marks, purple eyes. Gaara remembered meeting this boy once, briefly, at a Chunin exam that Naruto had attended for precisely 1 hour before leaving. They had locked eyes across the stadium. Gaara had felt, for one moment, something looking back at him through those purple eyes that made Shukaku curl into a ball and whimper. He put the file down. Strengthen the border patrols, he told Baki. Double them. Kazekage-sama, do you believe he'll move south? I believe, Gaara said, that he will move wherever he wishes, whenever he wishes. All we can do is be seen trying. Naruto's first year of open rule passed without a single challenge that lasted more than minutes. Bandits who strayed into his territory were dealt with by the standard military. Rogue ninja who thought a child emperor was an easy target for assassination discovered, in their final moments, that the palace's defense systems included sensor arrays with a 12-mile radius and automated key turrets that Orochimaru's engineers had adapted from Naruto's descriptions of Frieza Force ship weaponry. 3 assassination attempts, 3 vaporized assassins. After the third, the attempt stopped. The economy flourished. Trade was stable. Naruto's administrators, trained by Rin, supervised by Fu, motivated by a very clear understanding of the consequences of failure, ran the civilian infrastructure with ruthless efficiency. Roads were built, schools were opened, hospitals were staffed. It was an empire in every sense, and like all empires, it had a single unifying principle at its core: the emperor himself. Everything flowed from Naruto. Everything returned to Naruto. Every decision of consequence was his. Every major policy bore his stamp. He was 12. He ran a nation. He was bored. Fu, he said one evening, sitting in his private quarters, a room of white and purple that overlooked the palace grounds through a floor-to-ceiling window. How many Akatsuki members remain active? 7, Lord Frieza, including the leader. And their objective remains the collection of Jinchuriki? All intelligence confirms this. They require the tailed beasts for a project they have designated as the Moon's Eye Plan. Details remain unclear. Naruto's tail curled. His eyes reflected the sunset, orange and purple mixing in his irises. A plan that requires my tenant, he said. How amusing. They want to extract the fox from this body. Yes, Lord Frieza. Then they will come to me eventually. Whether I go to them or they come to me, the confrontation is inevitable. Your orders? Naruto was silent for a long time. The sunset painted the room in shades that matched his aura. Continue surveillance, he said. When they move, and they will move, I want to know. I want locations. I want numbers. I want their escape routes mapped and their fallback positions identified. And when you have all of that, Naruto smiled. It was the smile that Fu had learned to recognize, the one that preceded something enormous, something that would reshape the map. Then I will pay the god of Omega-Kuri a personal visit, he said. And I will teach him what I teach everyone who claims that title. His eyes glowed. That there is only one god in any universe I inhabit. The night fell over the palace. The lights of the Frieza Force's capital burned against the darkness, a constellation of civilization in the midst of wildlands. Soldiers patrolled, scientists worked, administrators filed reports, the machinery of empire turned without pause, and at its center, in his private room, in his hover chair, watching the stars through glass that had been manufactured to his exact specifications, Naruto Uzumaki sat alone. He thought about Goku. Sometimes he still thought about Goku, the monkey who had defeated him, the low-class warrior who had become a god and then surpassed gods and then fought creatures that made gods look tame, the man who smiled through battle and offered mercy to enemies who deserved destruction, and somehow, through sheer, infuriating, impossible willpower, kept getting stronger. Naruto hated him. Still, after death, after reincarnation, after an entire lifetime in a different universe. He hated Goku with the cold, absolute hatred of someone whose pride has been broken and never fully healed. But he had learned from that hatred. He had learned that mercy was weakness. He had learned that holding back was suicide. He had learned that every enemy left alive was a future threat multiplied by time. He had learned that the universe respected one thing and one thing only: absolute, unchallengeable, unquestionable power. He had it now. In this world, this small, primitive, chakra-powered world, he had it completely. There was nothing here that could challenge him, nothing that could threaten him, nothing that could make him feel what Goku had made him feel. It should have been satisfying. It was. Mostly. He leaned back in his chair, his tail wrapped around the armrest. Back, his eyes drifted closed. Tomorrow, there would be meetings, reports, decisions. The machinery of empire would demand his attention. The Akatsuki would continue scheming. The 5 great nations would continue adjusting to their new reality. The world would continue turning, and he would continue owning it. Because he was Lord Frieza, emperor of everything he surveyed, conqueror of galaxies and destroyer of worlds, and the most feared name in any history that had ever been written. And this world, this little corner of the universe, this backwater planet with its backwater wars and its backwater gods, belonged to him. All of it. Every last piece. Somewhere in Omegakure, rain fell through the eternal overcast. Pain stood in his tower, 6 bodies maintained, each a weapon, each a path to power that he believed was absolute. He looked toward the east, toward the Frieza force's territory, toward the palace that his intelligence reported grew larger with each passing month. The Rinnegan saw far. It saw energy and life and the threads of fate that connected all things. It saw the figure at the center of the Eastern Empire, that impossible concentration of power, that aberration in the world's energy field, that thing that made no sense in the context of anything Nagato understood about this world. Pain's fists clenched. God does not bow, he said to the rain. The rain did not answer, but somewhere in the east, a 12-year-old emperor smiled in his sleep as though he'd heard the challenge and was already looking forward to the response. The death ball still haunted the sky and memories across the continent. Sensor types reported feeling phantom energy spikes for weeks afterward. Children in villages hundreds of miles away had nightmares about orange light in the sky. 3 seismological stations recorded the event as an earthquake because their instruments lacked the vocabulary for what it actually was. In Konoha, Iruka sat alone in his classroom after hours, grading papers. His desk held a photograph, class photo, 2 years old. A boy with blonde hair and whisker marks grinned from the front row, his headband newly tied, his eyes blue and bright and holding nothing unusual. Iruka looked at the photograph and felt something that hurt worse than grief, because grief was for the dead and Naruto was alive. Naruto was thriving. Naruto was the most powerful being on the continent. But the boy in the photograph, the one who had eaten ramen with Iruka at Ichiraku's and complained about homework and smiled with genuine warmth, that boy was gone. Had been gone for years, maybe. Had been replaced or overwritten or consumed by whatever now wore his face and spoke and used his hands to end lives. Iruka put the photograph face down on his desk. "I'm sorry," he whispered. He was apologizing to a ghost. In the palace, morning came. Naruto woke, stretched. His joints popped. He looked at the ceiling, white, flawless, worthy of an emperor, and smiled. "Another day," he said. His tail unwound from around his body, a sleeping habit, wrapping himself in it like a protective cocoon, and he rose from his bed and dressed. White and purple, his preferred colors. The orange jacket hung in a closet, unworn for months, preserved for reasons he did not examine. He entered his throne room, took his seat, reviewed the morning's reports. Lord Frieza. Fu materialized. The diplomatic envoy from Mist has arrived. Send them in. Additionally, Orochimaru requests a meeting regarding his latest enhancement project. He says the results are, quote, beyond anything I imagined possible. Schedule him for this afternoon. And one more thing. Fu hesitated. The slightest pause, barely perceptible. Jiraiya has been seen at our northern border, alone, unarmed. He's requesting an audience. Naruto's tail stopped its lazy swaying. His eyes sharpened. The Toad Hermit returns, he said, alone and unarmed. How curious. What could he possibly want? Shall I deny him entry? Let him in, Naruto said. I find myself in a generous mood this morning, and the Toad Hermit was always the most interesting of that tedious trio. Fu bowed and vanished. Naruto settled into his throne, his fingers steepled before his face. His purple eyes reflected the morning light, streaming through the rebuilt dome above. Whatever the Toad Hermit wanted, whether it was information or negotiation, or one last desperate attempt to reach the child he believed still existed somewhere inside the Emperor, Naruto would hear him out. He was generous, he was patient, he was magnanimous in victory, and he had already won. The morning sun climbed over the Frieza force's capital, casting long shadows from the white spires across the training grounds below. Soldiers drilled, scientists worked. The Empire breathed. And above it all, in his throne, in his chair, in his power, Naruto Uzumaki sat and watched the world that belonged to him and found it acceptable. For now. The Akatsuki still moved in the shadows. The 5 great nations still plotted behind closed doors. Somewhere, someone was still foolish enough to believe they could challenge him. Good. He hoped they would try. It had been so long since anything had been entertaining. The Death Ball's ghost still pulsed behind his eyes, orange and purple, contained and waiting, ready to be summoned at any moment. The power was always there, always present, always available. All it required was a reason. And in this world of ambitious ninja and power-hungry Kage and secret organizations with delusions of godhood, reasons were never in short supply. Naruto closed his eyes. His smile was small and perfect and terrible. Come then, he whispered to the world. All of you, come and try. His tail swayed. The Empire breathed. The clock was still ticking. Jiraiya walked the length of the throne room corridor with the gait of a man who has made peace with something. His sandals clicked against the white stone. His hair, long, white, unbound, hung limp against his back without its usual energy. He wore no armor, carried no scroll. His hands hung loose at his sides, empty and open, a man approaching a predator's den with every weapon left behind. The guards along the walls tracked him with their eyes. Their weapons remained holstered. Orders had come down. The Toad Hermit was to be allowed passage. The Emperor had decided. Jiraiya reached the end of the corridor. The throne room opened before him. A cathedral of white and purple, rebuilt since the last time he'd been here. The dome restored. The pillars replaced. Every trace of the previous confrontation erased as though it had never happened. The room smelled of nothing. Clean air. Recycled. Alien. At the far end, elevated on a platform of polished stone, the hover chair hung in the shaft of light from the dome above. In it, Naruto. 12 years old still. Barely 13 now, if the calendar was right, though nothing about him suggested a number that small. He sat with his legs crossed, his tail draped over the armrest, his chin resting on one fist. His eyes were open, purple, burning with that faint inner light that made the air around his face shimmer. He was watching Jiraiya approach with an expression of genuine interest, the way a collector watches a rare specimen present itself. Toad Hermit, Naruto said. His voice filled the room without effort. You came unarmed. That is either the bravest or the stupidest decision you have ever made. I am genuinely uncertain which. Jiraiya stopped 15 meters from the throne. He looked up at the floating boy, at the tail, at the purple eyes, at the posture that belonged to something ancient wearing a child's skin. He breathed, in, out. I've spent 8 months looking for answers, Jiraiya said. 8 months in libraries, temples, ruins. I talked to sages on 3 continents. I read scrolls that haven't been opened in centuries. I consulted with the elder toads of Mount Myoboku. And what did you find? Naruto asked. His tail moved, a single lazy oscillation. Nothing. Jiraiya's voice cracked on the word. Absolutely nothing. Whatever you are, whatever moved into that boy's body, there is 0 record of it in this world's history. You are unprecedented. Naruto's smile widened, just slightly. Oh ho ho ho, what a lovely word. Unprecedented. I shall have it engraved somewhere. I need to know. Jiraiya took 1 step closer. His eyes were wet. His voice shook with something that had been building for months. Grief or rage, or the particular exhaustion of a man who has chased a ghost across 5 continents and found nothing in its shape. What happened to him? To Naruto? To Minato's son? Ah! Naruto uncrossed his legs. He leaned forward in the hover chair, a posture of engagement, of genuine willingness to address the question. So this is what brought you to my door? Sentiment. He was my godson. He was a vacancy, Naruto corrected. A body with nothing driving it except animal instinct and the pathetic desire to be acknowledged. The soul that was supposed to inhabit this vessel either never arrived or departed before I did. I filled the space. I have been filling it for 5 years. Jiraiya's jaw worked. His fist stayed open with visible effort. You're telling me, he said, that there was never a Naruto, that the boy I watched grow up, the boy who ate ramen and wanted to be Hokage, was just an empty body going through motions? I'm telling you that whatever occupied this body before I awakened was insufficient to qualify as a complete being, Naruto said. A bundle of needs and reflexes. A creature running on instinct. When I arrived, when my consciousness reasserted itself across the dimensional barrier, there was nothing here to resist me, nothing to compete with. I simply was. Minato's son was a vessel, Naruto said. Your student created an excellent container, strong, durable, capable of holding my power without rupturing. I'm quite grateful, actually. The boy's genetics are exceptional. The Uzumaki vitality, the Namikaze potential, all of it serves me admirably. Jiraiya closed his eyes. His hands trembled at his sides. You don't have to do this, he said. The words came out broken, thin, the sound of a last card being played with full knowledge that the hand was already lost. Whatever you are, you power, extraordinary power. You could use it differently. You could protect this world instead of what? Naruto interrupted. Conquering it? Ruling it? He laughed. That refined musical sound. Toad Hermit, let me explain something to you. Something I tell very few people. He leaned forward further. The hover chair descended 3 feet, bringing him closer to eye level with the standing man. There is zero Naruto for me to return to. There never was. The boy you are mourning, the one with your student's eyes and your sensei's hair, he was a shell, an empty vessel. I arrived. I have been here ever since. His purple eyes locked onto Jiraiya's. And I have been here before, in another universe, in another body. I ruled galaxies. I commanded armadas. I erased civilizations because they failed to amuse me. This, he gestured at the throne room, at the empire beyond its walls. This is a hobby. This is what I do while I wait for something worthy of my attention to appear. Jiraiya was silent for a long time. His head hung. His chest moved with breaths that sounded like they hurt. I admired your persistence, Naruto continued. His voice softened. Just barely, just enough. Truly, among the tedious collection of Konoha's leadership, you alone possess something worth respecting. Intelligence, tenacity, the willingness to walk into an emperor's throne room alone and unarmed. He settled back in his chair. But this conversation has concluded. Jiraiya raised his head. His eyes were dry now. Something had changed in them. A decision, final and absolute, settling behind the grief like steel behind cloth. He looked at the boy in the hover chair, and he saw what he had always feared he would see. Nothing of Minato, nothing of Kushina, nothing of the child who should have been, only the emperor. Then I have one thing left to say, Jiraiya said. Speak. Minato trusted us to protect his son. I failed. We all failed. Whatever happened, whatever you are, I accept that I cannot change it. He planted his feet. But I can still do what a godfather does. And what is that? Jiraiya's hands formed the first seal. His chakra erupted, a surge that cracked the white stone beneath his feet, that sent his hair rising on currents of energy, that made the guards along the walls reach for their weapons. Nature energy flooded him, pouring in from every direction, from the earth below and the air above, converting his body into something more than human. His face changed, the nose broadening, the lines around his eyes deepening into toad-like markings, his irises becoming horizontal bars of gold, sage mode, full activation in 3 seconds. He never gives up on the people he loves, Jiraiya said. And his voice was enormous now, resonant with sage power, carrying the weight of Mount Myoboku's ancient strength, even when it means dying for them. The ground beneath Jiraiya's feet cracked outward in a starburst. He moved. The sage-enhanced leap covered 15 meters in a fraction of a heartbeat, faster than sage mode had ever carried him, faster than his body should have allowed at his age, his right hand already forming the spiral of compressed chakra that was his student's legacy. Sage art, ultra big ball Rasengan. The sphere in his palm was enormous, the size of a small boulder, spinning with visible force lines, howling with the sound of a typhoon compressed to the size of a fist. It carried enough force to carve a valley enough energy to level the palace. Naruto watched it come. He tilted his head. His purple eyes tracked the approaching attack with the mild interest of someone watching a demonstration. Educational, noteworthy, ultimately irrelevant. He raised one hand, palm open. The Rasengan hit his palm. The shockwave erupted outward. Air compressed and released, the floor splintering in a 30-meter radius, the nearest pillars leaning away from the point of impact. Jiraiya poured everything into it. Every ounce of sage power, every reserve of natural energy, his body burning with the effort of maintaining maximum output against something that refused to yield. Naruto's palm held. The Rasengan spun against it, compressed against it. The energy fought to grind forward, to push through, to reach the flesh beneath, and found nothing. The hand was a wall. The hand was an absolute. Impressive, Naruto said. For this world, that is genuinely impressive. He closed his fingers. The Rasengan broke. Its energy scattered, dispersing in a flash of blue light that raced across the ceiling and vanished. Jiraiya staggered backward, his sage markings flickering, his face locked in an expression of perfect understanding. He had known. He had always known. Jiraiya reset. His hands formed seals faster than his age should have allowed, sage chakra burning through his tenketsu at maximum capacity. The floor beneath him erupted. Sage art, hair needle barrage. His white mane expanded, hardened, launched forward in 10,000 needle-sharp strands aimed at every conceivable target on Naruto's body. Naruto's aura pulsed, a single expansion, purple light flashing outward from his skin in a sphere. Every needle hit the aura and vaporized. 10,000 hardened strands of sage-enhanced hair, reduced to ash in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Jiraiya was already summoning. His hands hit the ground, blood, seal, contract. Summoning jutsu. The throne room's floor exploded upward. A toad massive, the size of the room itself, its armored hide covered in sacred markings, materialized beneath Jiraiya's feet. Gamabunta, the chief toad, his pipe between his lips and his sword drawn. Jiraiya! Gamabunta's voice was a rumble that made the walls vibrate. What the hell have you gotten me? The chief toad's eyes found Naruto. The pipe dropped from his mouth. Unsummon me, Gamabunta said, immediately, without pretense. Unsummon me right now! Bunta, I will die before I fight whatever that is, the toad said. His legs were already tensing, ready to leap, ready to flee, held in place only by the contract that bound him to his summoner's battlefield. Jiraiya, I have fought demons, and I have fought madmen, and I have faced the fox itself. That thing, his eyes were fixed on Naruto, on the small figure floating in the hover chair, watching them both with amusement, is worse than all of them. Naruto raised one hand, a flick of his fingers, a pulse of ki so concentrated and so overwhelming that Gamabunta's summoning contract tore. The toad vanished in a cloud of displaced air, unsummoned by force, returned to Mount Myoboku by an authority that superseded contracts and blood. Jiraiya hit the floor where the toad had been. He landed in a crouch. His sage markings were fading, the natural energy reserves depleting, his body struggling to maintain the transformation under the psychic pressure that Naruto's presence generated. He stood anyway. His hands formed seals. Sage art, massive Rasengan. 3 Rasengans, one in each hand and one balanced on his left shoulder, maintained by raw chakra density. He charged again, slower now, his body aging in real time, his sage power guttering, and every step was a step towards something he had already accepted. Naruto raised 2 fingers. Barrage Death Beam. The beams were faster than Jiraiya's sage-enhanced perception could process. 6 points of purple light, thin as needles, bright as stars, lanced forward in the space between one heartbeat and the next. 2 hit his arms above the elbows. The beams entered on one side and exited on the other. Perfect circles of cauterized flesh, the bone beneath severed clean, the nerves dead before pain could travel. Jiraiya's arms fell, both of them. They hit the white stone floor with the sound of something final, heavy, wet, wrong. The 3 Rasengans they'd been holding dispersed into nothing. Jiraiya dropped to his knees. His sage markings vanished, the natural energy fleeing his body as though it understood that what remained was beyond its jurisdiction. His face was white. His mouth was open. His body was processing what his mind already knew. He did not scream. He breathed, through his teeth, through the absolute consuming fire that raced up from the stumps where his arms had been. Naruto descended. The hover chair lowered to the ground and he stepped off it, his feet touching the floor with the lightness of something that weighs nothing unless it chooses to. He walked toward the kneeling man. His steps were measured, unhurried. He stopped in front of Jiraiya. He crouched, one arm resting on his knee, his face level with the Sanin's, his purple eyes meeting the fading gold of sage-enhanced irises that were already returning to their natural brown. "You were the best this world had to offer in its current iteration," Naruto said. His voice was soft, almost kind. The way a teacher speaks to a student who has exceeded expectations while still falling short of the passing grade. That is simultaneously a compliment and a verdict. Jiraiya looked at him, through him, at something beyond. "Minato," Jiraiya whispered. He was seeing someone who was absent. His eyes were fixed on a distance that had nothing to do with the room they occupied. "I'm sorry, kid. I tried." Naruto stood. He raised one finger. Purple light gathered at its tip, a single point bright and final. Death beam, quick, clean, through the center of the forehead. Jiraiya's eyes went wide for one instant, one fraction of a second where everything stopped, and then his body folded forward and hit the white stone and lay still and did not move again. The Toad Sage, dead. Naruto looked at the body for 3 seconds. His expression held nothing. Zero triumph, zero guilt, zero sentiment of any kind. He straightened his collar. He returned to his hover chair. He sat. He crossed his legs. "Send in the mist envoy," he told Fu. She materialized at his side. Her eyes flickered to the body on the floor, just once, just briefly, and then back to her tablet. "At once, Lord Frieza," she said. "And the cleanup?" "Standard protocol. Return his body to Konoha. I want them to see it." Fu bowed and vanished. Naruto settled into his chair. His tail swayed. The throne room hummed with its clean, recycled air. The shaft of light from the dome above illuminated the space where the fight had occurred, where the floor was cracked, where blood marked the white stone in patterns that the cleaning crew would address within the hour. He thought about the fight, about Sage Mode, about the way natural energy had supplemented Jiraiya's reserves and altered his physiology. Interesting. Primitive. Certainly, the enhancement was marginal compared to ki transformation, but the underlying principle was sound. Drawing energy from the external environment to augment internal reserves, he filed it, for later. "Temporary diversions," he murmured, and went back to his morning. Konoha received the body at sunset. It arrived on a transport sealed in white cloth bearing the Frieza Force sigil. Pristine, unmarked, except for the obvious absence of arms and the single entry wound at the forehead. Tsunade opened the seal herself. She looked at what was inside. She closed the seal. She walked to her office. She closed the door. She did not emerge for 14 hours. When she did, her eyes were dry and her orders were clear. Increase tribute payments. Reduce border surveillance. Recall all intelligence operatives from Frieza Force territory. The era of gathering information on the Emperor was over. The era of survival had replaced it. Kakashi heard the news in the Jonin lounge. He set down his book. He walked home. He sat in his apartment until morning with his hands in his lap, staring at the wall. In 3 nations simultaneously, sensor types reported feeling a brief pulse of energy originating from the Frieza Force capital, the death beams distorted by distance registering as seismic anomalies. Scholars wrote papers about it. They were wrong about what it was, but their data was excellent. In Mount Myoboku, the great sage toad opened its eyes from its prophetic slumber and spoke a single sentence to the assembled elder toads. The child of prophecy is lost. What remains is something else entirely. The toads mourned, in their ancient way, croaking songs that lasted 3 days, songs for a summoner who would never call them again. The world moved on. It had learned to move on faster these days. There was less and less left to mourn. Naruto was 14 when he decided that Amegakure had existed independently for long enough. He had grown. The change was visible. Height added, frame narrowing into something lean and angular, his face losing the last remnants of childhood softness. His jaw had sharpened. His cheekbones had risen. The whisker marks on his cheeks appeared thinner, more like scars than birthmarks, giving his face an edge that made people's eyes linger longer than they intended. He was beautiful in the way that a blade is beautiful, in the way that things designed to end other things often carry an aesthetic that the eye cannot reject. His voice had settled too. deeper. The silk over steel quality that had always been present was now layered over a resonance that made every sentence feel permanent, as though his words were being carved into the air rather than spoken into it. He stood in the planning room of his palace, a circular chamber with a holographic map of the continent projected at its center, every territory marked, every border delineated, every point of interest tagged with data that scrolled in real time from Fu's intelligence network. Amegakure glowed red on the map, the only major settlement still operating outside his direct governance. The rain, Naruto said, examining the projection. His tail moved behind him in slow arcs. Does it ever stop? Never, Fu said. She stood at the edge of the hologram, her tablet in hand. The rain god Pain implemented a jutsu decades ago that maintains the overcast indefinitely. It serves as both a surveillance mechanism and a psychological tool. The perpetual weather controls the population's mood. How pedestrian. Naruto tilted his head. And the god himself? 6 bodies, the Rinnegan distributed across all 6, each path possessing a unique combat ability. The real controller, Nagato, operates from a concealed location using chakra receivers to maintain the connection. He is immobile, frail. His body was ruined years ago by the demonic statue's extraction, a cripple playing puppet master from a chair. Naruto's smile curved. How familiar. He left his hover chair at the palace. He left his guards. He left his army, his intelligence network, his administrative apparatus. All of it. He departed from the highest spire of the Capitol building at dawn, his body wrapped in a cocoon of ki that carried him through the atmosphere at speeds that made him a white streak against the morning sky. He arrived above Amegakure in 16 minutes. The city sprawled below him, towers of industrial steel and gray concrete rising from waterways that gleamed like veins of mercury under the perpetual overcast. Rain fell. Constant, gray, unending. It hit his aura and evaporated 3 inches from his skin, creating a halo of steam around his floating form. Every sensor array in the city activated simultaneously. Every alarm triggered. Every patrol mobilized. He descended slowly, arms folded across his chest, tail swaying behind him. His aura brightened, purple light cutting through the gray rainfall, a beacon visible from every corner of the city. He was making a statement. He was letting them see him coming. He was giving their god time to prepare everything, so that when everything failed, the failure would be absolute. The 6 paths converged on the central tower. Naruto landed on its roof. His feet touched the metal surface, and the rain around him flash evaporated in a 10-meter radius. He stood in a circle of dry steel, hands behind his back, and waited. They came, 6 bodies, 6 faces, all bearing the Rinnegan, those concentric purple eyes that mark the legendary dojutsu of the Sage of 6 Paths. They appeared from 6 directions, surrounding him on the rooftop, each one radiating chakra at levels that would have flattened ordinary shinobi through presence alone. The Deva path stood at 12 o'clock. The main body, orange-haired, pierced with chakra receivers, wearing the black cloak with red clouds that was the Akatsuki signature. His face was a mask of assumed divinity, the face of a man who had played God for so long he had forgotten the character ended where his skin began. You stand in my village, the Deva path said. Its voice carried the weight of the Rinnegan's authority, uninvited. Your village. Naruto tasted the words. His smile was indulgent. Oh ho ho ho, the delusion is charming. You control a single city through intimidation and weather manipulation. I control 7 nations through superiority. We are not comparable entities. God does not bow, the Deva path repeated, the same words he'd spoken to the rain months ago. Then God learns, Naruto said, or God dies. These are the only options available. I'm being generous in offering both. The Asura path moved first, its mechanical body opening, panels sliding, weapons extending. Missiles launched from shoulder pods, laser-thin beams of compressed chakra fired from facial apertures, bladed limbs extended and thrust. Naruto raised one hand. Telekinesis gripped every projectile in midair, missiles, beams, blade extensions. He held them, suspended, frozen in the air between himself and the mechanical body like a museum display. How industrious, he said, examining a missile hovering 3 feet from his face. Primitive engineering, but industrious. He clenched his fist. Every projectile collapsed, crushed inward, compressed to the size of marbles, and dropped to the roof in a cascade of metallic clicks. The Ashura path rushed him with its remaining bladed arms. Naruto did not move. He reached out with his mind and the path came apart. Panels separated from the frame, limbs detached from joints, chakra receivers slid free from their housings. In 2 seconds, the Ashura path was a scattered collection of components arranged neatly on the rooftop in a grid pattern. "One," Naruto said. The animal path slammed its hands to the roof surface. 3 summonings manifested simultaneously. A massive dog with multiple heads, a bird of enormous wingspan, a rhinoceros the size of a building. They charged from 3 directions. The rooftop buckled under their combined weight. Naruto raised 2 fingers. 3 death beams, fired so fast they appeared simultaneous, punched through the center of each summoned skull. The bodies hit the roof and dissolved, their summoning contracts terminated by the simple expedient of destroying their brains faster than the healing factor of forced summoning could respond. "2," Naruto said. The human path darted in close, fast, faster than the others, its hand extended and reaching for Naruto's head, the soul extraction technique. A touch that would rip the soul from the body and read every thought, every memory, every secret. Its fingers were 2 inches from Naruto's face when his tail moved. The bio-armored appendage snapped forward and wrapped around the human path's wrist. It held. The path struggled, pulling, twisting, its Rinnegan eyes widening as it encountered something it could not break free from. Naruto looked at the hand hovering near his face with an expression of mild offense. "Do not touch me," he said. "I am the emperor of this world." His tail whipped downward. The human path's body followed, slammed through the metal roof, through the floor below, through 3 additional floors. The building shook. The tail unwound from the wrist and returned to its lazy sway. "3," Naruto said. The Preta path charged from behind. Its technique was active, the chakra absorption barrier glowing blue around its entire body, designed to consume any energy-based attack and render it harmless. It was Pan's counter to ranged fighters. A walking void, it reached for Naruto's aura. Its hands made contact with the purple ki that surrounded him. The result was instant and catastrophic. Ki was not chakra. It was an energy type from a different universe, operating on different principles at a different frequency. The Preta path's absorption technique attempted to process it the same way it processed ninjutsu, and the incompatibility cascaded. The path's hands went white, then its arms, then its torso. Energy feedback racing through its system, building pressure with nowhere to go, the absorption mechanism locked in a loop that was consuming it from the inside out. The Preta path detonated, a burst of mixed purple and blue energy that scattered its components across the rooftop in a radius of 20 meters. 4, Naruto said. He examined the smoking crater where the path had stood. Fascinating. A chakra absorption technique that cannot process ki. I'll have Orochimaru study that interaction. The Naraka path had summoned the King of Hell, a massive spectral head rising from the ground, its mouth open, capable of restoring any of the other paths through its judgment and restoration abilities. Naruto looked at it. He fired a death ball. The sphere of orange and purple consumed the spectral entity whole. The King of Hell, a summon that existed partially in another dimension that was supposed to be untouchable by physical force, was swallowed by an energy that superseded dimensional barriers. The sphere expanded for a brief instant, then collapsed. The Naraka path, without its restoration ability, without its spectral guardian, was simply a body with eyes. Naruto's telekinesis pressed it flat against the roof. It did not rise. 5, Naruto said. The Diva path stood alone. Rain fell around them both. The rooftop was destroyed, cratered, punctured. Sections caved in from the fights that had lasted less than a minute total. 5 of the 6 paths were eliminated. Their destroyer floated 3 inches off the ruined surface with his arms still folded, his tail still swaying, his expression holding the same mild interest it had held from the beginning. "Your best technique," Naruto said. "Show it to me. I want to see everything before I end this." The Deva path raised both hands. Shinra Tensei. Almighty push. Full scale. The invisible force erupted from the path's body in a sphere of absolute repulsion, a gravitational reversal that pushed everything within its radius away with the force of a natural disaster. Buildings within 300 meters flattened, the rain reversed direction, falling upward, driven by the technique's field. The air itself compressed and fled. The The wave hit Naruto. He leaned into it. His aura erupted, purple, blazing, a pillar of ki that punched through the gravitational force the way a river punches through a dam. He planted his feet on the empty air beneath him and walked forward, against the almighty push. Through it, each step a declaration, each step an impossibility made casual. The Devapath's eyes went wide. Its hands trembled. The technique was at maximum. Everything Nagato could channel through this body, every ounce of Rinnegan authority pressed into a single gravitational command. And the figure before it was walking through it the way you walk through a mild breeze. Naruto reached the Devapath. He stood before it, close enough to touch, the almighty push still raging around them both, accomplishing nothing against the figure at its center. Disappointing, Naruto said. You call yourself a god of peace, oh ho ho. The irony of that title never becomes tiresome. He raised one hand and flicked the Devapath's forehead. The body launched backward, through the remnants of the building, through the next building, through 4 more after that. A tunnel of destruction marking its exit from the immediate area. The almighty push ceased. The rain returned to falling downward. The Devapath reformed, pulled itself from rubble a quarter mile away. Its hands formed a different seal, something bigger, something final. Chibaku Tensei. A black sphere appeared in the sky above Amegakure, small, dense, the center of its own gravity. And then the world began tearing itself upward toward it. Buildings ripped from their foundations. Streets broke apart. Water rose in defiance of physics. The entire city, tons upon tons of steel and stone and infrastructure, was being pulled skyward and compressed into a growing sphere of debris around that gravitational center. An artificial moon forming above the rain. Naruto watched it. He watched the buildings tear free. He watched the water rise. He watched the citizens of Amegakure, far below in the streets that were disintegrating, scream and flee and cling to whatever remained anchored. The sphere grew. The size of a house, the size of a stadium, the size of a small island. It hung in the sky like a new geological feature, impossible, enormous, blocking out even the overcast above. Naruto raised one finger. Death Ball. The orb formed at his fingertip, orange and black and purple, swirling with internal fire, growing at a rate that matched and then exceeded the Chibaku Tensei above. It grew to the size of a house, a stadium, an island. It dwarfed the artificial moon. It made the gravitational sphere look like a pebble next to a planet. He fired. The death ball rose. It consumed the Chibaku Tensei on contact. The gravitational sphere breaking apart as its energy was overwhelmed, its debris scattering and then vaporizing in the heat of the approaching sphere. The death ball continued upward, punching through the overcast that had covered Amegakure for decades, through the clouds, into the open sky above. It detonated. The light was visible from 3 countries, a flash of orange, purple, white that turned the sky into something that but belonged in a different world. The overcast above Amegakure blew apart, clouds vaporizing in a circle 40 miles wide, revealing blue sky and sunlight that had been hidden for 30 years. For the first time in 3 decades, the rain stopped. Sunlight fell on Amegakure, golden, pure, hitting streets that had never known it, hitting faces that turned upward in confusion and wonder and fear. Naruto floated in the center of the cleared sky. His aura was visible from the ground, a star of purple light hanging where the clouds used to be. He looked down at the city that was his now, at the people staring up, at the world that continued to provide insufficient resistance. He descended, through the sunlit air, down to street level where the Devapath, battered, cracked, its last technique having accomplished nothing, stood in the rubble of what had been Amegakure's central plaza. Your god is dead, Naruto told the Devapath. His power was a facsimile of divinity. Mine is the reality of it. He walked past the path. It fell behind him, strings cut, the puppet collapsing as something essential left it. He walked through Amegakure's streets, through sunlight and debris and the wide eyes of citizens who had never seen the sky without rain. He walked until he found the hidden entrance, a concealed door in the base of the tallest tower, sealed with barriers that his ki dissolved on contact, down, through corridors of pipes and machinery, through the infrastructure of a god's deception. Until he reached the chamber, Nagato sat in his machine. The walker, that terrible apparatus of tubes and supports that kept his emaciated body functioning. He was thin beyond reason. His hair was red and lank. His face was a skull with skin stretched over it. Only his eyes were alive. Those Rinnegan, those legendary purple circles, staring at Naruto from across the room with an intelligence that his body could no longer match. A woman stood beside him. Blue hair, paper wings folded at her back. Her face was composed. Her hands were at her sides. She was ready to fight. She was ready to die. Conan. Naruto stopped in the doorway. He looked at the pair of them, the dying god and his angel, the last remnants of something that had once called itself divine authority in this city. "You are something this world was never made to contain," Nagato said. His voice was thin, reedy, the voice of a body that had burned itself to fuel a dream. "It wasn't," Naruto agreed. "But here I am, contained or otherwise." "What do you want?" Nagato asked. "From this world? From us? From any of it?" Naruto considered the question. He gave it 3 seconds, more than he gave most. "Everything," he said. "The same thing I have always wanted in every life I have lived. Everything. All of it. Without exception and without apology." Nagato closed his eyes. His Rinnegan disappeared behind thin lids. "Then there is nothing left to discuss," he said. "There is not." Naruto raised one finger. The light gathered at its tip, purple, small, a final punctuation mark. "Your piece was a lie," Naruto said. "My empire is the truth. The world will serve a better master now." He fired. Nagato's body jerked once. The light faded from behind his closed lids. The machine holding him upright continued humming for 3 seconds, then went silent as the chakra sustaining it vanished. The rain god was dead. Naruto turned to Conan. She stood beside the body of the man she had spent her entire life serving, her hands trembling at her sides, her paper wings partially deployed, a billion sheets of explosive tag paper floating in a halo around her body. She was ready. Her face said she was ready. Naruto looked at her. He tilted his head. That appraising look, the one that weighed and measured and found either something worth preserving or something disposable. "You could attack," he said. "You have approximately 600 billion explosive tags prepared. The detonation might reach me before I evaporate them." "It won't," Conan said. Her voice was even. "It won't," Naruto confirmed. "So the question is whether you choose to die accomplishing nothing or live accomplishing something. I prefer the latter. You are talented. You are composed. You have held this city together through the delusions of men who called themselves gods and the reality of men who were merely powerful." He stepped over Nagato's body, toward her. His purple eyes held hers. "I need a governor of rain," he said. "Someone who understands this city. Someone its people already know. Someone with the intelligence to serve an emperor and the discipline to manage a province." The paper around her trembled. Her jaw was tight. "And if I refuse?" "Then you refuse, and I find someone else, and the paper angel dies in a room that smells like her dead partner's machinery." His voice carried zero threat. It was simply a fact stated plainly. "But you know the better choice. You have always known the better choice. You chose Nagato because he was the strongest option available. I am the stronger option now." Conan's wings folded. The paper settled, drifting down around her in a cascade of white that looked almost like the snow this city had never seen. She looked at Nagato's body. One long look. A farewell to everything that had been. She looked at Naruto. "What do you need first, Lord Frieza?" she said. "A census of this city's population, a resource assessment, and..." He glanced at the machinery around them. "The sun stays, permanently. This city has had enough rain." Conan bowed her head. When she raised it, her eyes were clear. "It will be done." Naruto turned and walked out, through the corridors, through the entrance, into sunlight that fell on Amigakure for the first time in 30 years and would continue falling forever. Because the emperor preferred his territories bright, he floated upward, into the cleared sky, into the open blue above a city that had changed masters, and perhaps for the first time changed for the better. Behind him, Conan stood in the light and felt the sun on her face and said nothing, and felt something she was afraid to name. 2 months passed. Naruto's 14th birthday arrived and departed, celebrated by his staff with a formality that pleased him, because formality was earned and they understood what they owed. He was taller now, 5 feet 6. His body was still growing, filling out with the lean musculature that his ki maintained at optimal density. His face had sharpened further. The whisker marks were thin lines now, barely visible, unless you knew to look, unless the light caught them at certain angles. His hair was longer, styled back from his forehead, smooth, pale gold against the purple of his eyes. He wore white, always white, with purple accents that matched his aura and his energy, and the gems that manifested when he allowed his true form's qualities to bleed through. His tail was always visible now, wrapped around his waist like a belt in public, free and swaying in private, a part of him that he had stopped concealing years ago, because concealment implied shame. And shame was a concept that applied to lesser beings. The intelligence about the Kage Summit reached him 3 weeks before the summit itself occurred. The Raikage had called it, a closed-door meeting of all 5 Kage to discuss, in the diplomatic language of people who have already lost, a unified response to the Frieza force's expansion. Naruto read the intercepted communications with the amusement of a man watching ants organize a resistance against the boot that was already descending. They're planning a coalition, he told Fu. Yes, Lord Frieza. The summit is scheduled for 3 weeks from now in the Land of Iron, neutral territory. That's the funniest thing I've heard in months. He attended. The summit chamber was built into the side of a mountain, a fortified conference room with reinforced walls, a long table of polished stone, 5 elevated seats arranged in a semicircle. The samurai of the Land of Iron guarded every approach. Barriers layered the structure. Anbu from 5 nations prowled the surrounding forests. None of it mattered. Naruto arrived at the 30-minute mark of their deliberations. He came through the reinforced doors, which folded inward at his approach like paper before a flame, the steel bending rather than breaking, the barriers simply ceasing, his ki overriding their chakra constructions the way a river overrides a sandcastle. He walked in. He found an empty space at the head of the table. He sat down. He crossed his legs, folded his hands before him, and looked at 5 of the most powerful leaders in the elemental nations with an expression of polite attention. Please, he said pleasantly, continue. I find the gap between what you believe you're capable of and what you're actually capable of genuinely fascinating. The silence lasted 4 seconds. Then the Raikage exploded. A 4th Raikage, a man built like a siege weapon, muscles layered over muscles, his body crackling with lightning armor that activated at the speed of thought. His chair disintegrated beneath him as he launched forward, across the table, through the air, moving at a speed that made him a blur to everyone in the room except Naruto, his fist cocked and carrying enough electromagnetic force to crater a mountain. The fist arrived. Naruto raised 2 fingers. He caught it, between his index and middle finger, the way you might catch a thrown pin. The shockwave from the stopped punch blew backward, the table cracking down its center, papers scattering, the other Kage bracing against the pressure wave. A's lightning armor crackled against Naruto's fingers. The energy raced across his skin and found nothing to damage. Ki reinforced flesh that treated S-rank lightning jutsu as a mild tickle, stared at his fist, at the 2 fingers holding it, at the 14-year-old sitting in a chair at the head of a table of world leaders who had just caught his most powerful strike without shifting his posture. Was that meant to hurt? Naruto asked, examining his own fingers with mild curiosity. Roared. His free hand, left fist, lightning enhanced, aimed at Naruto's temple. Naruto's tail intercepted. It snapped upward from his waist and caught A's left wrist, wrapping around it, holding it in place. The Raikage was suspended, right fist caught between 2 fingers, left wrist wrapped in a bio-armored tail, struggling with the full force of his lightning-enhanced physique and achieving nothing. You are the fastest shinobi alive, Naruto said. I've read your file. Speed that surpasses the 4th Hokage's. Reflexes that outpace the Sharingan's tracking ability. Truly impressive. He tilted his head. For this world, he pulled his fingers apart. The motion separated A's fist from his wrist. A clean break, the bones snapping under force they were never built to resist. A screamed. A primal, raw sound. The Raikage reduced to base animal response by pain that his lightning armor could not prevent. Naruto's tail whipped downward. A's left arm followed, yanked at an angle that the shoulder joint was never designed for. The crack was audible across the room. The Raikage's left arm went limp, dislocated, the tendons torn, the muscles severed by the force of a tail that moved faster than his nervous system could process, Naruto released him, hit the ground. Both arms ruined. His lightning armor flickered, maintaining itself through pure stubbornness, through the refusal to admit what had just happened. He was on his knees, the fastest, strongest Kaji in the current generation, on his knees in 3 seconds from 3 movements. Naruto stood from his chair. He walked around the table, slowly, hands behind his back, his tail moving in that lazy rhythm, and he lifted A with one hand. Telekinesis. The Raikaji floated upward, 260 pounds of enhanced muscle lifted like a sheet of paper, and settled back into his chair. "Stay seated," Naruto told him. "We're having a meeting." A's teeth ground together. His lightning armor surged, attempting to restart, to rebuild, to give him one more chance. Naruto placed one finger on A's forehead. A pulse of ki. The lightning armor died. Every trace of chakra enhancement vanished from the Raikage's body, snuffed out like a candle in a hurricane. "Seated," Naruto repeated. He turned to the rest of the table. Onoki, the Tsuchikage, ancient and floating on his own levitation technique, had his hands raised. Between them, a cube of transparent energy was forming. Parta-style Jinten, the Keke Tota that disintegrated anything it touched at the molecular level. "I apologize, boy," Onoki said. His voice was strained with effort, the technique demanding everything his aged body could provide. "But I've survived 3 wars by knowing when to strike." He fired. The cube expanded and raced toward Naruto, a perfect geometric shape of annihilation, erasing air molecules as it traveled. Naruto's aura pulsed. The cube hit the purple energy field around his body and stopped. It pressed against the aura. It strained. The particle-style technique, the ability to reduce all matter to atomic components, met an energy type that existed outside the framework of elemental conversion. The cube flickered, destabilized. The geometric shape warped, its edges going ragged, its energy scattering against the ki barrier like water against heated glass. It dispersed, harmless, gone. Onoki's ancient face went blank, his hands dropped. "Sit down," Naruto told him. Onoki sat. He was old enough to recognize the absolute when he saw it. The Mizukage, Maid Terumi, had not moved from her seat. She sat with her legs crossed, her hands folded in her lap, watching the proceedings with green eyes that held something between professional assessment and personal interest. She was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. Auburn hair falling over one eye. Her lips curved in a smile that was part politics and part genuine amusement. She was the only one at the table who had been making pragmatic decisions since this entire situation began. She had sent the first diplomatic envoy. She had negotiated favorable terms early. She had positioned Mist as an ally rather than a target. She was the smartest person in the room besides Naruto, and they both knew it. "You're the only one with sense," Naruto told her. "I noticed." "I noticed you noticed," she replied. Her voice was warm, unafraid. She was looking at him with the particular attention of someone who was filing every detail. The lean frame, the settled voice, the purple eyes that burned with cold fire, the way he held a room through presence rather than volume. Something passed between them. Brief, electric, the recognition of 2 creatures who operated at a higher frequency than their surroundings. Naruto's smile changed. Just slightly, just at the edges, something warmer entering it. Something that had nothing to do with dominance and everything to do with genuine interest. "We'll speak further," he said, "after." She inclined her head. Gaara moved last. The Kazakage, 5th of that name, 15 years old. His face ringed with the permanent marks of insomnia. His gourd already opened and sand pouring from it in streams that filled the air. The sand built, layer upon layer. It rose around him. A defense first, always a defense first. Because Gaara had learned long ago that survival preceded everything. Then it attacked. A wave, a 100-foot wall of sand compressed to the density of steel, roaring forward with the force of a desert given will and direction. It filled the chamber. It consumed the space between Gaara and Naruto. It hit with the power of something that had once contained a demon and carried its echo. Naruto raised one hand. The sand stopped, all of it. Every grain, a 100-foot wall of weaponized earth, frozen in midair by telekinetic force, so overwhelming that even the individual particles ceased vibrating. The room was still, the sand hanging in the air like a frozen tsunami. Gaara's chakra still pushing against it, finding something immovable on the other side. Naruto and Gaara looked at each other over the suspended wave. Two Jinchuriki, two vessels, two boys who had been alone before anything else, and who had chosen different responses to that loneliness. "You're remarkable," Naruto said, "for what you are." "What does that mean?" Gaara asked. His voice was steady. His sand trembled against the force holding it, but did not retreat. "It means I respect your effort. It means the result is still the same." Naruto's hand turned. The sand collapsed, falling from the air like an avalanche in reverse, burying itself in the floor, pressing Gaara downward with it. The Kazekage's knees buckled. A fraction of the telekinetic force, a finger's worth, perhaps less, settled on his shoulders and pressed him to the ground. Gaara knelt. His sand armor cracked at the joints. His teeth were visible, grinding together, his jaw locked in the specific expression of someone who understands that resistance is meaningless and hates the understanding. Naruto released him. "Stand up," he said. "You kneel to acknowledge the reality. The reality has been acknowledged. Stand." Gaara stood. His sand reformed around him, defensive, instinctive, the habit of a lifetime. He looked at Naruto with those ringed eyes and said nothing further. The room was silent. The table was cracked. One Kage sat with both arms broken. One had been rendered ineffective. One had been pressed to the floor. One sat with perfect composure. One stood beside his chair with his hands in his pockets and an expression that suggested he was already past this moment and thinking about the next. Naruto returned to the head of the table. He sat. He crossed his legs. "Now," he said pleasantly, "shall we discuss terms? I have prepared paperwork." The treaties were signed within the hour. Each nation, each hidden village, each military apparatus, each economic structure formally acknowledged the sovereignty of the Frieza force. Tribute, intelligence sharing, non-aggression, military integration timelines. Every document bore the seal of a Kaji and the signature of a leader who had been given a choice between pride and survival and chosen correctly. The Raikage signed with his left hand. His right was in a sling. His face was a mask that betrayed nothing except the specific agony of a man whose pride had been the foundation of his identity and who had just watched that foundation crumble. As Naruto rose to leave, he paused beside Mai Terumi's chair. He looked down at her, at the elegant line of her neck, at the green eye visible behind auburn hair, at the smile that had never faltered through the entire proceeding. "Governor of Mist," he said, "I believe we have additional matters to discuss. My schedule has an opening tomorrow evening." She looked up at him. Her smile deepened. "Does it?" "I find I'm making room," he said. He left, through the folded doors, into the sunlight beyond the mountain chamber. His departure was as absolute as his arrival. The moment he was gone, the room seemed to expand, as though a compression that had been squeezing it from every direction simultaneously released. The Raikage broke the table in half with his one good arm. The crack echoed through the chamber and accomplished nothing except giving him 1 second of satisfaction. Onoki sat very still and thought about the 3 wars he had survived and how none of them had prepared him for what he had just witnessed. Gaara reformed his sand gourd and left without speaking to anyone. Mai Terumi gathered her documents, placed them neatly in her portfolio, and walked out with the composure of someone who had just made what she considered an excellent decision. Tomorrow evening, the following weeks reshaped the world's geometry. The 5 great nations, nominally independent, functionally subordinate, began the process of integration. Tribute flowed, intelligence flowed. Military cooperation began in stages that would eventually render the concept of hidden villages an anachronism. Naruto oversaw it from his throne room. Reports stacked. Communications arrived. The machinery of empire expanded, and he expanded with it, growing into the role the way water fills a container, effortlessly, because the role was designed for something his size, and he had been waiting for it. Mai Terumi arrived at his palace on schedule. Their first meeting lasted 3 hours and covered exactly the administrative topics they had both pretended it would cover, along with the undercurrent of something else that neither of them pretended was absent. She was 31. He was 14. The gap was irrelevant. She was speaking to something ancient behind young eyes, and both of them knew it. "You're the only leader who made the correct decision without needing to be beaten first," Naruto told her over the diplomatic wine that neither of them was drinking for diplomatic reasons. "That makes you either brilliant or cowardly." "And which do you think it is?" She leaned forward. Her chin rested on interlaced fingers. Her eye, the visible one, held his gaze without flinching. "Brilliant," he said. "Cowards lack the composure you've maintained throughout this entire process. You chose pragmatism because you understood the situation faster than your counterparts. That takes intelligence and courage in equal measure." "I've been called many things by many men," May said. "That is the first time the compliment actually meant something." His tail moved, a single arc behind his chair. His smile was real, small, the emperor without his performance for one brief moment. "Return next week," he said. "I have further administrative matters that require your consultation." "Administrative matters," she repeated. The words carried a weight that had nothing to do with governance. "Bring the mistrade proposals," he said, "and wear the blue." She raised an eyebrow. "Does the emperor have a preference?" "The emperor has many preferences. You've triggered several." She left that night with a diplomatic portfolio and a warmth in her chest that she analyzed for the entire journey home and failed to categorize as anything other than genuine. Conan arrived at the palace 2 weeks later, ostensibly for her quarterly governance report. In reality, and they both understood the reality, because she had been summoned, and because the summoning had been a request rather than an order, and because the difference mattered to her, she presented her report in the administrative wing. Amigakure, population stable, infrastructure rebuilt at 40%, economic output exceeding pre-pine projections by 12%. She spoke with the focused efficiency of someone who found purpose in the work and satisfaction in its results. When the report was complete, Naruto asked her to walk with him. Through the palace corridors, through the gardens, white stone paths between beds of purple flowers that Orochimaru's botanists had engineered to bloom year-round. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and gold. "You've rebuilt that city faster than anyone expected," Naruto said. "The people were ready," Conan replied. Her paper wings were absent, folded away, unnecessary in the emperor's presence, where everything was already still. They lived under a false god for decades. When the sun returned, so did their will to build. "And you, are you ready?" She looked at him. Her golden eyes held something that she had been carrying for months, a question, a recognition, an acceptance that was still settling into its final shape. "For what?" she asked. "For whatever this becomes," he said. Simply, without embellishment. Conan was silent for 20 steps. The gravel crunched beneath her feet. The sunset painted everything in fire colors. "I served a dream," she said. "For my entire life, Yako's dream, then Nagato's version of it. I held it together with my own hands and never once asked what I wanted for myself. And now the dream is gone. The men who dreamed it are gone. And I am here, in a world that has a new reality." She looked at him. Her face was composed, always that mask of paper stillness. But beneath it, something was opening. "I find I prefer reality." Naruto's tail moved, a single arc. His smile was the one he reserved for things that interested him. Warm at the edges, genuine in the center. "Good," he said. "Reality prefers you as well." She did not return to Amigakure that night. When she left in the morning, something between them had shifted into a space that would continue deepening, built on respect, on the specific gravity of two people who had both remade themselves and found the new shapes compatible. Samui arrived at the palace 3 weeks after the summit. She came alone, without authorization from the Raikage's office, without escort. She carried a sealed scroll containing Cloud's classified weapons development data, acquisition schedules, prototype designs, deployment timelines, and she presented it at the gate with a single line of explanation. "I prefer being useful to being irrelevant." Fu brought the scroll to Naruto. He read it. He read the note. He smiled. "Bring her to me," he said. Samui walked into the throne room with the posture of someone who has already committed and refuses to waste energy on doubt. She was tall, taller than Naruto's current height, which she clearly understood would change with time. Her blonde hair was straight and short. Her expression was level. Her blue eyes held the focused intensity of someone who operated at maximum efficiency at all times and expected the same from her environment. She bowed. Once. The minimum gesture that acknowledged his authority without degrading her own dignity. "You betrayed your Kage," Naruto said. He was studying her, appraising. The same look he gave rare specimens: interest, evaluation, the consideration of value. "My Kage was beaten in 3 seconds, Samui said. I serve strength. You are strength." That is a mercenary's logic. It is a realistic assessment. Naruto laughed. Oh ho ho ho. The sound was genuine. A woman who speaks plainly. How refreshing. He gave her a position in his intelligence division, adjacent to Fu's operation, lateral, independent, focused on military intelligence rather than the broader network. She excelled. She was the most efficient operative he had ever employed. Every report on time, every assessment accurate, every recommendation sound. Their interactions were professional, for a while, until the evening when Naruto was reviewing a joint operation proposal and Samui was presenting it, and their eyes met over the holographic map, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with troop deployments. "You're the only person in this palace who has never once wasted my time," Naruto told her. "I know," she said. "I find that trait attractive. I know that too." His smile sharpened. "Bold. Efficient," she corrected. The dynamic between them was different from the others. Angular where Mei was curved, focused where Conan was expansive. It operated in their shared space with the precision of 2 machines that had discovered their gears meshed perfectly. None of the 3 women were interchangeable. None were passive. None simpered or deferred or performed submission. They were women who had chosen, with complete information, with full understanding of what he was, to enter the orbit of the most dangerous being alive. And the choosing was what made them remarkable. The choosing was what earned them his attention. Naruto managed nothing between them. He existed. They orbited. And the orbits were their own to navigate, built on different foundations, serving different needs, occupying different spaces in his life. He had conquered a world. He was allowed to enjoy it. Toby appeared on a Wednesday morning. The spiral of space-time opened in the center of the throne room without warning, without triggering a single sensor, without alerting a single guard, without disturbing the ambient key field that Naruto maintained around the palace at all times. One moment the room was empty save for Naruto in his chair. The next, a figure stood before him, a mask, orange, spiraling around a single eye hole, black cloak with red clouds, a posture of assumed ease, the body language of someone who believes they hold the strings. Naruto's tail stopped its motion, his eyes fixed on the figure. He did not move. He did not rise from his chair. He did not power up. He studied. The energy signature was enormous, layered, old, a massive chakra reserve compressed into a human frame with the density of a dying star, laced through with the resonance of yes. There it was, the Rinnegan's frequency buried beneath everything else, and beneath that, the Sharingan, multiple, evolved. "Impressive what you've built," Toby said. His voice was pitched artificially, a false joviality, a performance of goofiness that the body language did not support. "You're faster than I expected." "And you are the real architect," Naruto said. "The puppet master, the one who placed Nagato in that chair and pointed him at the world and called it his own design." His purple eyes narrowed. "Remove the mask. I prefer to speak to the face behind the performance." Toby paused, his head tilted, then his hand rose. The mask came off. Beneath, a face that should have been dead. Uchiha Madara, or something wearing his legacy, someone who had taken his name and his mission and his eyes and made them their own. The face was scarred. One eye was the Sharingan, 3 Tomoe spinning. The other was the Rinnegan, concentric circles of purple. "Better," Naruto said. "Now I can see what I'm dealing with. You are either the real Madara Uchiha or someone who has been pretending long enough that the distinction ceased to matter." "I am Madara's will made manifest," Toby said. His voice was different now, deeper, older, carrying the weight of something that had been alive too long. "I am the completion of his dream, the Moon's Eye plan." "Explain," Toby explained. "The infinite Tsukuyomi, the 10 tails, the Gedo statue, and its need for all 9-tailed beasts, the projection of an illusion across the world through the moon, trapping every living being in a perfect dream, ending war, ending pain, ending choice. He framed it as peace, as salvation, as the ultimate mercy. "And you want my tenet," Naruto said when the explanation concluded. "The Nine Tails energy for the statue." "I'm offering a partnership," Toby said, "between the two most powerful entities in this world. Together, we could stop." The word landed like a blade into wood. Toby's mouth closed. Naruto stood from his hover chair. He stood slowly, each movement a statement, his tail unfurling from his waist, his aura beginning to build around his frame in a purple haze that made the air thick and hot. "You came into my throne room," he said. His voice was lowering. His eyes were brightening, the purple intensifying, the glow expanding. "You explained a plan that requires something that belongs to me, and you offered me a partnership as though we were equals. We're not equals." Each word struck like a hammer. "We have never been equals. We are separated by a distance you lack the reference points to measure. You are an insect with stolen eyes standing before an emperor and offering a deal." His tail rose behind him, rigid, the tip crackling with ki. "The answer is the same as it always is. Everything you have is mine. Everything you are is mine. You do not bargain with me. You surrender or you are removed." Toby's Sharingan spun. His Rinnegan pulsed. His chakra erupted, the full weight of his reserves releasing, the air around him warping with gravitational distortion, the fabric of space itself beginning to twist at his command. "Then we are done talking," Toby said. He attacked. Space-time distortion. His Kamui technique, the ability to become intangible, to shift his body between dimensions, to make physical attacks pass through him like he was made of nothing. He flickered, present and absent simultaneously, appearing behind Naruto, his hand reaching for the back of the Emperor's neck, intending to warp him away into the pocket dimension that served as his personal prison. Naruto did not turn. His tail snapped backward. It passed through the space where Toby's chest was, passing through the intangible body, and Naruto felt the contact fail and processed the information in a nanosecond. "Phase shifting," he said. "You can make yourself incorporeal." He turned. His purple eyes locked onto Toby's form. "Interesting. The first ability in this world that has made me actually think." Toby rematerialized. He had to attack. His hand reformed and thrust toward Naruto's face. Naruto's own hand closed around Toby's wrist at the exact instant of materialization. The timing was impossibly perfect. The gap between intangible and solid was a fraction of a second, and Naruto had identified it and exploited it in a single exchange. "You have to become solid to touch me," Naruto said, "which means there is a moment, brief but real, where you are vulnerable." His grip tightened. Toby's wrist cracked. Toby warped away, his entire body spiraling into his own dimensional pocket, escaping the grip by removing himself from reality. He appeared 20 meters away, his wrist hanging at a wrong angle, his eyes wide behind the calculating mask. "What are you?" Toby breathed. "I am Lord Frieza," Naruto said, "and your tricks are interesting but insufficient." Toby's good hand formed a seal. The air around them twisted. Susanoo manifested, a skeletal frame at first, then layering, then armoring, then completing. The avatar rose around Toby like a mountain growing in fast forward. Blue chakra given form, given muscle, given a 100-foot frame that wielded a sword of pure energy and bore a shield that could withstand tailed beast bombs. The perfect Susanoo, the final expression of Uchiha power. The technique that had once fought the first Hokage to a standstill across a valley that still bore the scars. Naruto looked up at it. He was 14 years old and 5 feet 6, and the avatar towering above him was 100 feet tall and glowing with enough chakra to flatten a small country. He raised one hand. He caught the Susanoo's sword as it descended. One hand, open palm. The blade, 40 feet long, made of compressed chakra that burned at temperatures exceeding natural fire, pressed against his palm and went nowhere. His feet pushed into the ground, cracking it in rings beneath him. But his arm did not bend. His body did not yield. "None surpass me in power," Naruto said. "None." He pushed. The sword went back up. The Susanoo staggered, a 100-foot avatar of chakra and willpower pushed backward by a single hand from a figure 1/100th its size. The ground beneath the avatar cratered. The palace walls beyond them shook. Naruto's body shifted. Second form. The transformation erupted from him in a burst of ki that evaporated the air in a 20-meter sphere. His body expanded, 2 feet of height added. his frame thickening, horns sprouting from his crown in sweeping arcs of white bone. His tail doubled in length. His aura changed color, deeper purple, edged with white lightning, dense enough to distort light. He was 8 feet tall. His voice, when he spoke, resonated in registers that made the walls vibrate. "Now then," he said, "let me show you what galactic power feels like." He jumped. The ground where he'd been standing ceased to exist, vaporized by the force of his departure. He hit the Susanu's chest with both hands extended and pushed through it, through the shield, through the rib structure, through the armored torso. His hands tore through the perfect Susanu, the way you tear through paper, the chakra construction parting around him, unable to hold, unable to resist the Kai-infused strength of something that had fought Super Saiyans in another life. He emerged from the Susanu's back, covered in flickering blue chakra that evaporated off his form in seconds. Behind him, the avatar collapsed, breaking apart in sections, the chakra dispersing, the frame losing cohesion. Toby fell from inside the dissolving construct. He caught himself midair, Kamui activating, his body going intangible before he hit the ground, and reformed 30 meters away with his Sharingan spinning at maximum speed. "Limbo!" Toby called. The Rinnegan pulsed, 4 shadows deployed. 4 invisible bodies, limbo clones existing on a different dimensional plane, undetectable by anyone who lacked the Rinnegan. They moved at full speed toward Naruto from 4 vectors, 4 attacks from 4 directions, each carrying the full power of the caster, each invisible to conventional sight. They hit Naruto simultaneously. He felt them. 4 impacts, 4 invisible forces striking his form from all sides. He looked at the air around him with an expression of mild irritation. Telekinesis, he noted, operates on mass, not visibility. He reached out with his mind. 4 invisible somethings had mass. They existed, even if they existed in a dimensional layer that conventional eyes could not perceive. His telekinesis did not need eyes. It needed particles. It needed physics. And the limbo clones obeyed physics regardless of which dimension they occupied. He found them, grabbed them, pulled. 4 limbo clones, dragged from their dimensional hiding place into visible reality by pure telekinetic force, appeared in the air around him, suspended, visible. 4 copies of Toby, pinned in midair by an invisible grip that recognized no dimensional boundaries. Naruto looked at them. Barrage death beam. 4 beams, 1 per clone. The bodies detonated, purple light consuming dimensional constructs that had never been designed to exist in visible space. The explosions were silent. The limbo clones simply ceased, erased from every dimension simultaneously. Toby stared. "That should be impossible," he said. His voice had changed, the false age dropping away, replaced by something younger and more honest, something that was genuinely afraid. "Most things I do should be impossible," Naruto said. "I find the word loses meaning when applied to me consistently." Toby's Rinnegan glowed. His remaining hand formed a seal, something ancient, something that drew on the deepest well of chakra he possessed. His right eye, the Rinne Sharingan, the combined dojutsu that exceeded both parent eyes, opened fully, light erupted from it. A projection, focused, aimed at Naruto's eyes. The Infinite Tsuki's power concentrated into a single beam intended to trap one person rather than a planet. A last resort, a final gamble. The light hit Naruto's eyes. He blinked. Once, the light reflected back. His purple irises, burning with ki that existed outside this world's energy framework, bounced the illusion away, the way a mirror bounces light. The Tsukuyomi technique found nothing to grip in his mind. The Genjutsu searched for chakra pathways to infiltrate and found a consciousness powered by ki, a different system, a different architecture, an incompatible format. The illusion broke. Like water hitting heated metal. It hissed and evaporated and was gone. Naruto looked at Toby with an expression of genuine offense. "You tried to trap me in a dream," he said. His voice dropped. The second form's resonance, making every word land like a physical impact. "I have died. I have been reincarnated. I have lived 2 full lives across different dimensions. What could you possibly show me that would hold?" He raised one finger. Death ball. The sphere formed. Orange and black, swirling with contained annihilation, growing from the size of a marble to the size of a house in less than a second. He fired it from less than 30 meters away, point blank, undodgeable, expanding to fill every possible escape vector. Toby activated Kamui. His body spiraled, becoming intangible, shifting into the pocket dimension. The death ball hit the space where he'd been. Its energy was not chakra. It did not obey the rules of this dimension. The explosion, silent, absolute, a sphere of annihilation that erased 40 meters of ground in every direction, sent shockwaves through dimensional barriers that Kamui used as its medium. Inside the pocket dimension, Toby felt the shockwave. His body, still reforming, still transitioning, was caught in the feedback. The dimension cracked. His safe space fractured. Reality reasserted itself around him and ejected him, broken, burning, missing pieces. He hit the ground of the real world. His body was coming apart, Zetsu cells struggling to hold together, the Rinnegan flickering, the Sharingan spinning without purpose. Half his torso was gone. His legs ended at the knee. His face, the scarred, ancient face of a man who had cheated death for decades, was blank with understanding. Naruto descended, reverted to his base form, the horns receding, the height dropping, his body becoming the lean 14-year-old frame again. He walked toward what remained of Toby with his hands behind his back. "You plan to dream the world into submission," Naruto said. "You imagined you could end conflict through illusion, through the removal of choice." He crouched beside the broken body. "Let me tell you something about peace, little Uchiha. Peace built on dreams is a house built on smoke. Real peace is built on one thing only, a power so absolute that resistance becomes conceptually impossible." He tapped what remained of Toby's forehead. "Once. I am that power. I have always been that power, and your dream was always inferior to my reality." He stood. Death Beam. The last architect of the Akatsuki's grand design. The man behind the mask, the shadow behind the organization, the will that had moved pieces across a continent for decades, ended in a flash of purple light and a silence that spread outward from the crater like ripples from a stone. Naruto stood in the aftermath. His palace was damaged, the throne room's walls cracked, the floor cratered, structural damage that would require repairs. He looked at the destruction with the mild annoyance of someone who has been inconvenienced. "Fu," he said. She materialized. Her face was pale. She had felt every moment of the fight through her sensor abilities, and the readings she'd gotten had exceeded anything in her reference framework. "The eyes," Naruto said. He pointed at the wreckage. "Retrieve them. Both, the Sharingan and the Rinnegan. Deliver them to Orochimaru's division with a single instruction. Lord Frieza? Understand these. I want to know everything they do." Fu bowed and moved toward the crater. Naruto returned to what remained of his hover chair, damaged but functional, and sat. His tail curled around the armrest. The Moon's Eye plan was dead. Its architect was dead. The threat that had hung over the elemental nations, the secret conspiracy, the hidden manipulation, the grand design that had moved wars and villages and Jinchuriki like chess pieces, was over. Ended by a single afternoon and an emperor who did not accept the premise of shared power. The remaining Akatsuki scattered. Without Pain and without Toby, the organization had lost both its public and private leadership. What remained was a collection of S-rank missing 9 without direction. Dangerous individually, irrelevant structurally. Naruto hunted them anyway. He hunted them because loose ends irritated him, because their continued existence represented something unfinished. Because, and he admitted this privately, only to himself, he was bored enough that the hunt would provide a degree of entertainment. Kasame Hoshigaki was first, the monster of the mist, the tailless-tailed beast. A man who had merged with his sword, Samahada, the living chakra-eating blade, and become something that existed halfway between human and shark and force of nature. Naruto found him at a lake, a massive body of water in the Land of Water's northern territories, deep enough that the bottom was a myth, wide enough that the far shore was invisible from the near one. Kasame stood on the water's surface in his full merged form, blue-skinned, gilled, his body massive and scaled, Samahada's teeth visible across his chest and back. The lake itself was his weapon, an extension of his chakra, a body of water that he controlled with absolute authority. "Lord Frieza," Kasame said. His grin was enormous, genuine, the grin of a creature that had accepted its own monstrosity and enjoyed it. "I heard you were collecting us. I decided to wait somewhere appropriate." Naruto hovered above the water. His aura burned around him, purple light reflecting off the lake's surface. "You chose to stand and fight. That's either admirable or suicidal." "Both," Kasame said. I've been a monster my whole life. Served monsters, been feared like one. If I'm dying today, his chakra erupted. The lake rose around him, a dome, a mountain, a world of water that consumed everything within 200 meters. Then I'm dying like what I am. The water crashed in, a tsunami from every direction, millions of tons of lake water infused with Kasame's chakra, crushing inward toward Naruto with the force of a natural disaster. Naruto's aura pulsed. You absorb chakra, he said. His voice carried through the water. Ki is different. He released. His aura expanded, a sphere of ki that burned at frequencies the water's molecular structure could not withstand. The water around him flash evaporated. Steam exploded outward in a shock front that blew the approaching tsunami back the way it came. The lake boiled. Visibility dropped to zero. The heat was enormous, tropical, suffocating, the air above the lake turning into a sauna. The lake emptied. 300 meters of water evaporated in 60 seconds. Steam rose in columns that merged into a single cloud visible from 20 miles away. Kasame stood at the bottom of the empty lake bed. His merged form was steaming, gills working overtime, scales drying, the moisture that was his medium and his advantage gone. He looked up at Naruto floating above the empty basin, and his grin widened. I respect this. Kasame said. Good, Naruto said. He fired a single death beam through the center of Kasame's chest, through Samehada's core, through the human heart behind it, through the merged existence that had made this man one of the 7 swordsmen and then something beyond them. Kasame fell. He hit the dry lake bed. His form was reverting, the shark features receding, his body becoming human again, Samehada separating and falling limp beside him. His eyes were open. His grin remained. Worthy, he whispered, and then nothing. Naruto looked at the body for a moment. A brief one. File him under the interesting ones, he said to the empty air. Fu would receive the message through her monitoring array. He left the empty lake behind him. The steam continued rising for hours. Itachi Uchiha was different. Naruto found him on the outskirts of a village in the land of fire. A small settlement with a tea house and a single road and nothing else of consequence. Itachi sat beneath a maple tree whose leaves were turning red with autumn. He wore civilian clothes. His eyes, those legendary Sharingan, dormant now, just black irises in a pale face, were fixed on the evening. He was dying. You could see it in every line of his body, the way he held himself, the shallowness of his breathing, the hollow of his cheeks. His lungs were failing. His eyes were failing. His body was consuming itself the way a fire consumes the house it was built in. Naruto appeared beside him. He did not float. He did not hover. He simply was there. Sitting on the grass beneath the maple tree, his legs crossed, his tail resting across his lap. Itachi looked at him. There was zero surprise in his face. He had been waiting. I know what you are, Itachi said. Do you? You're something that existed before this world had names for things like you. You operate on principles that our understanding of chakra cannot account for. You arrived inside that body and remade everything around you in your image. Naruto tilted his head. That is the closest anyone in this world has come to an accurate assessment. I've been watching you, Itachi said, since the report started, since sound fell, since the Kage knelt. He coughed, a wet sound, a sound of deterioration. You are going to win. Completely. There is nothing in this world capable of stopping you. Correct. I know. Itachi's eyes returned to the evening. The sky was purple and gold. I was going to die soon anyway. My illness has been terminal for 3 years. I had a plan. Let Sasuke kill me, give him the closure, give the leaf an ally. But you've changed the board. Sasuke is irrelevant now. The leaf is irrelevant. Everything I arranged is irrelevant. Naruto was silent. He let the man speak. What do you want with me? Itachi asked. I am deciding, Naruto said. You are perhaps the most interesting shinobi alive. Your intelligence exceeds everyone I've encountered in this world except myself. Your Sharingan abilities, even degraded, represent the pinnacle of ocular jutsu in this generation. You committed genocide and then spent a decade pretending to be a villain so thoroughly that the entire world believed you. He turned to look at Itachi fully, his purple eyes locked onto the Uchiha's black ones. You have 2 options, Naruto said. Surrender and serve. Your illness will be treated. Orochimaru's medical division can manage it. Your Sharingan will be preserved. Your intelligence will be put to use in my intelligence apparatus. You will spend whatever remains of your life doing something worthy of your mind. And if I fight, then you die here under this tree, and I take your eyes for research and your reputation for propaganda." His tail moved once. "But I think we both know which choice you'll make. You are practical above all else." Itachi was silent for a long time. The maple leaves rustled. The evening deepened. "Sasuke," Itachi said, "will be managed, Dalek. I have zero interest in your brother except as a minor asset. He will serve or he will be irrelevant." Itachi closed his eyes, breathed, opened them. "I'll serve," he said, "for however long this body allows." "Oh ho ho ho." Naruto's laugh was soft, almost fond. "The interesting ones always choose correctly." Itachi served for 4 months. His illness was managed, slowed, contained, the worst symptoms held at bay by Kabuto's medical expertise. He provided intelligence analysis that made Fu's team 60% more effective. He trained the sensor division in counter-genjutsu techniques. He sat in meetings and said very little and contributed more than anyone who spoke. He died on a morning in early spring. Sitting under a different tree, this one in the palace gardens, the white stone paths around him, the purple flowers in bloom. He closed his eyes and did not open them again. Naruto received the report during his afternoon session. "File him under the interesting ones," he said. "There are very few." He returned to his work. The reports continued. The remaining Akatsuki fell in sequence. Zetsu, the living will of an ancient entity, a fungal consciousness spread across the world's substrate, was located through sensor sweeps and dragged from the ground piece by piece. Naruto's telekinesis pulled the creature apart at the cellular level. White half and black half separated, each destroyed independently, each ending with a sound like wet earth tearing. Sasori, the puppet master of the Red Sand, a man who had made himself into his own art, was found in his workshop. He had 100 puppet bodies prepared. He deployed all of them. 100 puppets with poison weapons, with hidden blades, with mechanisms designed over decades to be the perfect killing instruments. Naruto raised one hand. Death beam. One beam. It punched through the first puppet, through the second, through the third, through all 100, in a straight line. The beam angled to catch each core cylinder in sequence as they stood in their storage formation. 100 puppet bodies collapsed simultaneously. Their master's core, the last piece of humanity the man possessed, hit the ground and cracked and was still. "Art is subjective," Naruto said to the empty workshop, "but I'm told his puppets were impressive. How disappointing." Deidara was last, the mad bomber, the artist who expressed himself through explosions. He found Naruto, came looking, actually sought the fight out, because Deidara was many things, but never a coward, and never willing to die without making his death a masterpiece. He appeared above the palace on an enormous clay bird, C3 explosives packed into its body, enough destructive power to level a village. His hands were forming clay at a frantic rate, spiders, birds, centipedes, all of them imbued with his explosive chakra. "Art is an explosion," Deidara screamed from above. "And this is my greatest piece. You, Emperor, you're the canvas." He detonated everything. C3, C2, C1. The entire arsenal, a cataclysm of explosive force aimed at the palace and its occupant. The sky turned white with detonation. The sound wave traveled for 50 miles. When the light cleared, Naruto was hovering in the same spot he'd been in before the attack. His ki barrier, palm-sized, held before him like a shield, had absorbed the entire explosion. Every ounce of destructive force, every bit of heat, every fragment of clay, contained by a disc of compressed ki smaller than a dinner plate. He dismissed the barrier. The residual energy dissipated into nothing. Deidara was already forming his final technique, C4, the microscopic explosives, the ones that entered the bloodstream and detonated inside the enemy's body. He released them into the air, invisible, undetectable, the perfect killing technique. Naruto expanded his aura. The ki field that surrounded his body pulsed outward, a sphere of energy that annihilated anything smaller than a molecule within its radius. The C4 explosives were swept away before they came within 20 meters. Deidara stared down at the floating emperor. His art, everything he was, everything he believed in, negated without effort. "You can't? My art is eternal. Your art is extinguished," Naruto said, "as are you." Death beam, through the clay bird, through Deidara's chest. through the specific heart that had beaten with artistic madness and explosive passion for 30 years. The body fell, the clay bird dissolved, the sky cleared. Was that the best this world has to offer? Naruto said to the empty air. How disappointing. The Akatsuki was gone. Every member, every asset, every base, every account, every piece of infrastructure, absorbed or destroyed or repurposed for the Frieza force. The shadow organization that had haunted the elemental nations for a generation vanished, erased as though it had never existed. Naruto returned to his throne room. He sat in his hover chair. He crossed his legs. Fool, she appeared. Her tablet was ready. Akatsuki status? Eliminated. All members accounted for. Assets seized. Intelligence files being processed. The world? Yours, Lord Frieza. He smiled. His tail swayed. Good. Send in the next appointment. The machinery of empire continued. Reports, decisions, the work of governance, of expansion, of managing a world that had finally accepted its new hierarchy. Naruto sat at the center of it and moved pieces and reviewed projections and directed the future of the elemental nations with the same ease he directed his own breathing. He was 15. He had eliminated every existential threat to his rule. The 5 nations paid tribute. The Akatsuki was gone. The moon was safe. The world was his. He was bored. The boredom was familiar. He had felt it before, in his previous life, in the long stretches between conquests, in the silence of his ship between worlds. It was the boredom of an apex predator who has emptied its hunting ground and found nothing left to chase. He trained. He explored his power, pushed against the boundaries of what his current form could produce. He discovered that his ki reserves, already immeasurable by this world's standards, continued growing simply through the act of existing. His body, this Uzumaki vessel with its vast chakra reserves and its fox tenet in its youth, was still developing. The ceiling of his power was higher than he'd measured, and it was rising. He visited his mindscape. The space had changed since his first visit years ago. The sewer was gone, replaced by a vast expanse of white stone and purple sky, an aesthetic that reflected its owner's preferences. Kurama's cage was still there, modified, enlarged, made comfortable in the way that a premium kennel is made comfortable. The fox rested inside it with his tails curled around his body and his eyes closed. Naruto appeared on the white stone. He sat, cross-legged, hands on his knees, 15 years old and ruler of a world and visiting the only being that shared his body. Fox, he said. One red eye opened. Kurama looked at the figure sitting outside his cage with the expression of something that has been held for a long time and learned to find comfort in the familiar. Emperor, Kurama rumbled. Naruto sat in silence for a moment. Then tell me something. What do you see from in there, looking out through my senses? Kurama's eye focused. Both open now. He uncurled, massive, filling the cage, his 9 tails shifting behind him. I see everything you see, the fox said. Every fight, every death, every moment of your rule. I see a world that feared me once, that called me a demon, a disaster, a weapon, and I watch you make them fear something worse. And I watch them bow, every one of them. Every human, every village, every Kage, they all bow eventually. Naruto tilted his head. You sound something. What is that? Admiration? Kurama's massive lips pulled back, something between a snarl and a grin. Call it professional recognition. I was the most feared thing in this world for 1,000 years. You took that title in 4. Oh ho ho. Naruto's laugh was soft in the mindscape. The house pet acknowledges the master. How touching. Kurama's eye narrowed. I am a being of pure chakra. I have existed since the Sage of Six Paths drew breath. I have flattened mountains and drowned coastlines. And you have been reduced to a battery in a teenager's body, Naruto said. Which of those facts defines your current existence? Silence. The mindscape hummed. You're bored, Kurama said. Naruto paused. His tail stopped its motion. Yes, he said. Somewhat. That's dangerous, the fox said. For everyone else. Naruto smiled. Small. Real. I know. He sat with the fox for an hour. They spoke of nothing in particular, or rather they exchanged the silences of 2 beings who shared a body and had reached an arrangement that functioned if it would never be called friendship. It was a relationship defined by its parameters. Master and servant, emperor and tool, the conqueror and his most significant possession. When Naruto left the mindscape, something was different. A degree of tension had shifted. The The fox's energy flowed more freely through his system, a percentage increase in available reserves, as though the conversation had opened a valve that cooperation maintained. He did not acknowledge the change. He simply used it. Danzo Shimura moved on the Emperor in autumn. The intelligence had been in Fool's files for 6 months. Naruto had watched it develop with the detached amusement of a predator watching prey build a trap too small to contain anything. Root operatives gathering in safe houses. Missing nin being recruited through back channels. Weapons being stockpiled. Communications flowing through coded frequencies that Fool's network decoded in real time. Operation Omega. 300 operatives. Every surviving root agent. Every desperate missing nin willing to take Danzo's money. Every remnant resistance fighter who believed that killing the Emperor would restore what had been lost. Naruto let it develop. He let the net tighten. He let 300 killers surround his palace on an autumn night. Positioned in the tree line, in the shadows, on the rooftops, in the ground beneath his feet, he let them believe they were unseen. Then he walked outside. The night was cool. Stars above. The palace's exterior lights illuminated the grounds in white pools. He walked down the main steps, alone, his hover chair inside, his guards dismissed an hour ago, and stopped at the edge of the training ground beyond the entrance. His hands were behind his back. His tail swayed in the night air. He was in his base form, 16 years old now, 5 feet 9, lean and angular and beautiful in the way that weapons are beautiful. His face had settled into its final form, sharp, aristocratic, the whisker marks barely visible, his purple eyes burning in the dimness. He stood still. He breathed the night air. He felt 300 heartbeats surrounding him, felt them through key sense, through the baseline awareness that made ambush a conceptual impossibility against someone who could perceive life force. 300, he called out pleasantly. His voice carried across the grounds without effort. That's more than I expected. I'm almost flattered. Movement in the tree line, a figure stepping forward, old, bandaged, one arm wrapped in cloth that concealed something wrong beneath. Danzo Shimura, Root's master, Konoha's shadow, the man who had spent decades believing that he was the village's true protector and resenting everyone who held the title he coveted. His bandaged arm unwound. Beneath, 10 Sharingan eyes implanted in the flesh, each one spinning, each one representing a stolen life, a stolen power, a stolen chance at resurrection through Izanagi. You've taken everything, Danzo said. His voice was low. Controlled in the way that men who are about to die often become focused, final. Everything this village built, everything this nation stood for. Yes, Naruto said, I have. I will end this, tonight. The Emperor dies and the world remembers what freedom means. Naruto smiled. The smile that preceded events that reshaped geography. You have 300 soldiers hiding in my tree line, Naruto said. You have 10 stolen eyes in your arm. You have spent months preparing what you believe is a sufficient force to kill me. His tail rose behind him, rigid, crackling at the tip with purple energy. Let me tell you something, old man. 300 was never going to be enough. 3,000 would never have been enough. 3 million would still have been insufficient. He raised one hand to the sky. But I appreciate the effort. Truly, it's been so long since anything was entertaining. Now, Danzo's voice cracked across the night. 300 operatives surged from their positions, from the trees, from the ground, from the rooftops. 300 bodies, trained, armed, murderous, launched at a single target from every direction simultaneously. Naruto powered up. The shockwave was visible. A ring of compressed air exploding outward from his position, flattening grass, cracking stone, the nearest trees bending outward and then snapping. His aura erupted, purple, massive, a pillar of energy that punched upward through the sky and illuminated the palace grounds in violet light. The first wave reached him. 20 operatives, the fastest, the most eager, arrived at his position with weapons drawn and killing intent burning. His tail moved. 20 bodies launched backward. 20 impacts against trees, against stone, against each other. The tail was a blur, a white arc that occupied multiple positions simultaneously, each strike carrying enough ki-enhanced force to send a human body through the air at speeds that turned landing into a lethal event. The second wave, 30, 40, coming from above, below, the sides. Jutsu filled the air: fire, wind, earth, water, lightning, a convergence of elemental destruction aimed at his position. Barrage Death Beam. Naruto raised both hands. 50 beams of purple light erupted from his fingers, 10 per hand, fired in a spread pattern that covered every approach vector. Each beam found a target. Each beam pierced a limb, arms, legs, shoulders, non-lethal, incapacitating. 50 operatives hit the ground in a radius around him, alive but unable to rise. He was toying with them. He knew it. They knew it. The ones still standing, the smart ones, the observant ones, were already reconsidering. Their steps slowed. Their weapons lowered half an inch. Naruto turned in a full circle. His purple eyes swept the grounds, counting the remaining forces, assessing their positions, mapping their retreat routes. 230 remaining, he said aloud. Approximately 40 seconds engagement began. At this rate, we'll be finished in under 3 minutes, he sighed. How tedious. 100 of them attacked simultaneously, from every direction. A wall of flesh and steel and jutsu, the combined assault of a small army, concentrated on one point. Naruto rose from the ground, 10 feet, 20. His aura expanded, a sphere of ki so dense that the approaching attackers hit it and stopped. Like hitting a wall of solidified energy. They pressed against it, weapons stabbing, jutsu impacting, bodies throwing themselves at the barrier with everything they had, nothing penetrated. Death Saucer. 2 discs of ki formed above his shoulders, spinning, humming, their edges glowing with energy that cut at the molecular level. He flicked them outward. They spiraled through the crowd, passing through bodies, through weapons, through jutsu barriers. The discs did not kill. They severed weapon hands. They cut through belt straps, releasing kunai pouches. They disarmed the army, one combatant at a time. The screaming was enormous. 100 voices, shock, pain, confusion, filling the night. The discs returned to Naruto's position and dissipated. He descended. His feet touched the ground. Around him, a field of disarmed, injured, terrified soldiers. Root operatives, trained from childhood to feel nothing, lay on the ground with tears on their faces because their conditioning had never accounted for something this overwhelming. Danzo stood in the tree line. His Sharingan arm was active, all 10 eyes spinning, his body reinforced by whatever techniques he had been saving. Behind him, his final 20 reserves, the best of the best, the absolute elite of Root, prepared for their last engagement. Interesting, Naruto said, walking toward the tree line. The fallen bodies parted around him, those still conscious dragging themselves away from his path. You have Izanagi, the reality rewrite technique. Each eye gives you 1 additional life. Danzo's face tightened, his secret, exposed casually, known completely. You think 10 lives will be enough, Naruto said. Let's test that theory. He raised 1 finger, Death Beam, through Danzo's right arm. The old man fell, his eyes squeezed shut, the first Sharingan activating, Izanagi rewriting reality, erasing the injury. Danzo stood, uninjured, 1 Sharingan closed permanently. 1, Naruto said, Death Beam. Left shoulder, Danzo fell, Izanagi activated, Danzo stood, second eye closing. 2, Death Beam, right leg, fall, rewrite, third eye. 3, 4, 5, 6. Each one the same, injury, death, rewrite, return. Each one using another Sharingan. Each one bringing the old man back intact while permanently closing 1 of his stored lives. 7, 8, 9. 1 eye left. Danzo was breathing hard. Sweat covered his face. His arm, the Sharingan arm, had 9 closed eyes and 1 remaining. 1 life, 1 final chance to rewrite reality. Naruto stood before him, 10 meters away. His expression was the same it had been from the beginning, mildly interested, faintly amused, a man running through an exercise he already knows the outcome of. How many left? Naruto asked. Take your time. I'm in 0 rush. Danzo's last 20 operatives charged. A final wave, desperate, committed, understanding that this was the end and choosing it anyway. They came from every side, weapons drawn, jutsu forming, their faces locked in the expressions of people who have already died and are simply waiting for their bodies to acknowledge it. Naruto raised 1 hand. Telekinesis gripped all 20. They froze midair, suspended, helpless, weapons hanging from numb fingers. He brought them down, pressed them to the earth. 20 bodies, face first in the grass, held by invisible force that they could not resist and could not comprehend. He returned his attention to Danzo. The old man, the last man standing, the architect of this failure, the shadow who had believed himself the light, stood alone in the tree line, with one Sharingan eye still open and the absolute understanding of defeat written across his face. "You were the most dangerous man in Konoha," Naruto said. He walked forward. His tail moved behind him, that lazy proprietary rhythm. "The one who always had a plan, the one who always survived. I genuinely respect the ambition." He stopped in front of Danzo. Close enough to touch. "It was never going to be enough," Naruto said, "but I respect it anyway." The last Izanagi eye closed. Used or unused, it ceased to matter. Danzo's arm hung limp. His body sagged. "The village," Danzo started. "The village is mine," Naruto said, "as is everything else. Your service to it was admirable in its dedication and monstrous in its methods. You are a man who believed the ends justified the means and spent a lifetime proving himself correct." He raised one finger. Purple light gathered. "In that at least, we are alike." He fired. Danzo's body hit the ground. The last Sharingan, the real one, his own, faded in his socket. The man who had been Konoha's shadow for 50 years was still. Naruto straightened. He looked at the tree line, at the bodies scattered across his grounds, at the wounded, at the unconscious, at the 20 operatives still pinned face down in the grass. "Someone send a cleanup crew," he called into the night. His voice was casual, unbothered, a man finishing a task and returning to his schedule. "And tell the administrators I want tribute reports from the northern provinces first thing tomorrow." He walked back up the steps, into the palace, through the corridors of white and purple, to his private quarters. He removed his outer garment. He lay on his bed, his tail curled around his body, that sleeping habit, protective, instinctive. He closed his eyes. He slept without dreaming. In the morning, nothing had changed. Reports arrived. Decisions were made. The empire breathed. Naruto was 16. The elemental nations were his, completely, permanently, unambiguously. Every village paid tribute. Every nation acknowledged his sovereignty. Every form of resistance, Root, the Akatsuki, the Kaj coalition, the individual challengers, was gone. Dismantled or destroyed or absorbed. He sat in his throne room on a morning in late spring and reviewed the weekly summaries. Trade revenues were up. Military readiness exceeded projections. Orochimaru's latest enhancement program, voluntary, reversible, producing soldiers 30% stronger than baseline, was in its third successful trial. Infrastructure projects across the former 5 nations were on schedule. The world worked. Under his hand, it actually worked. He had taken broken nations and made them function. He had taken corrupt governments and made them honest. Because corruption in his empire was punished with the same efficiency that rebellion was punished, and his administrators understood this fact in their bones. He had taken a continent of warring villages and unified it through the only force that unity had ever responded to, power so absolute that the alternative was extinction. He was feared everywhere. He was served everywhere. He was bored. May arrived at the palace that afternoon. She walked into his private study, a room of books and holographic maps and a window that overlooked the capital, and set down a trade proposal that neither of them would read that evening. She was 33. He was 16. The numbers meant nothing between them. She was speaking to the ancient thing behind his eyes, and he was appreciating the only person in his life who challenged him with intelligence rather than force. "You're in a mood," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk with the ease of someone who had occupied it many times. "I'm contemplating the nature of completion," Naruto said. His chin rested on his fist, his tail draped over his chair's arm. "The world is mine. Every opposition has been eliminated. Every system is functioning. And I find that the absence of challenge is its own form of misery," May suggested. Her visible eye gleamed. "I was going to say monotony. Same thing, for you." He looked at her. His purple eyes held hers. The warmth between them was a living thing, built over 2 years of conversations and silences and the specific intimacy of 2 minds that found each other worthy. "You understand me better than most," he said. "I understand that you are a conqueror without a conquest," she said. "That's a dangerous state for someone with your power." She leaned forward. "Have you considered simply ruling, without expanding, without fighting, letting the empire run and finding satisfaction in its perfection? I have considered it. And I find it possible, if insufficient." She stood. She walked around the desk. She stood beside his chair, close enough that her perfume reached him, close enough that the heat between them was tangible. Then find sufficiency in other things, she said. Her hand found his jaw, turned his face toward hers. Her green eye was inches from his purple. You've conquered everything external. Conquer something internal instead. His tail curled around her wrist. A reflex, a claim. Is that an offer, Governor? He murmured. It's an observation, she said, and yes. Conan arrived the following week. Her quarterly report was exceptional. Omegakure's reconstruction was 98% complete. Its economy was outperforming every other province. Its population satisfaction metrics were the highest in the empire. She delivered these numbers with the same composure she brought to everything. Golden eyes steady, voice even, paper wings folded at her back. When the report concluded, she did not leave. She stood in his study, her hands at her sides, and looked at him with something that she had been building toward for months. You've given this city a future, she said. You've given me a purpose beyond sustaining a dead man's dream. And I am grateful. But gratitude is insufficient to describe what I feel. Naruto's tail moved. Once, his eyes held hers. What do you feel, Paper Angel? Something that frightens me, she said, which is unusual. Very few things frighten me. Name it. She closed the distance. 2 steps. She stood before his chair, tall, composed, a woman who had served gods and lost them and found something better in their absence. I feel chosen, she said, for the first time. Rather than choosing to follow, his hand rose, his fingers found her chin, tilted it upward. You are chosen, he said, as few things ever are. Samui's dynamic operated differently. She appeared in his schedule like a blade in a sheath, always there, always ready, never requiring accommodation. Their interactions were efficient, pointed, charged with the specific electricity of 2 people who communicated in shorthand and understood the weight behind every abbreviated sentence. She delivered an intelligence briefing one evening, stayed for the post-briefing discussion. The discussion became dinner. Dinner became silence. Silence became something else, 2 people sitting in the same room with full understanding passing between them without words. You've never once asked me for anything, Naruto said, breaking the silence. You've never required asking, she replied. Her blue eyes were steady. I provide value. You recognize value. The transaction is complete. Is that all this is? A transaction? Transactions are clean. I prefer clean. And messy? She looked at him, the slightest crack in her composure, the faintest warmth entering those ice blue eyes. Messy is for people who know what they want, she said. I know exactly what I want. Say it, proximity, she said, to you, to what you are, permanently. His smile was the one reserved for things that pleased him genuinely, the one without performance, the one that reached his eyes. Granted, he said, none of them competed. The arrangement was understood. 3 women, 3 distinct relationships, 3 different needs met by the same extraordinary source. Mei was his intellectual equal, the one who challenged and sharpened. Conan was his complementary force, the one who matched his stillness with her own and found peace in it. Samui was his mirror, the one whose efficiency met his own and created something pure in the overlap. He managed nothing between them. They existed. He existed. The orbits intersected and separated and intersected again with the regularity of celestial mechanics. He visited Konoha on a Thursday in early summer. The official purpose was a tribute inspection. The real purpose was something he told no one, a return to the place where his vessel had been born, where the empty body he inhabited had spent its earliest years wanting things that he would never want. He flew, alone. The journey took 12 minutes at his cruising speed. He arrived above the village at noon, the sun at its peak, the streets full, the market bustling with the same energy it had carried when he was 8 years old, and standing in its center, with his arms folded behind his back, he descended. His feet touched the main street's packed earth. His aura receded, pulled inward, held close, his power concealed to avoid the pressure that his full presence placed on civilians. He wore white, his tail was wrapped at his waist. His eyes were faintly purple, visible only if you looked closely, if you knew to look. The market parted around him. They recognized him, every face that turned, every eye that widened, every body that stepped aside. The emperor walked their street and they parted the way all things parted before him. He walked to Ichiraku Ramen. The stand was the same, The wooden counter, the cloth banners, the smell of pork broth and noodles. Tochi stood behind the counter, his wife beside him, both older, both grayer. Naruto sat on the stool. The same counter, the same world, rearranged. Tochi looked at him, old eyes meeting young old ancient ones. His hands, weathered from decades of cooking, reached for a bowl without being told what to make. Miso pork, Tochi said. Extra Naruto. Extra egg. Naruto tilted his head. You remember. I remember every regular, Tochi said. His voice was steady. His hands did not shake. He was old enough to have stopped being afraid of things he could not change, and he was kind enough to have never stopped being kind, even when kindness required looking at what the world had become and choosing to hand it a bowl of ramen anyway. The bowl arrived, hot, fragrant, perfectly made. Naruto ate, in silence. His chopsticks moved with the same refined precision they carried in every action. The noodles were good. The broth was good. The memory was something, a flicker. The ghost of the boy who had eaten here with Iruka years ago, lifetimes ago, in a timeline that belonged to a different being. He set down his chopsticks. He placed exact payment on the counter. He stood. Good as ever, he said. He meant it, Tochi nodded. Just once. Just enough. Naruto left. He walked back through the market. He passed the academy. Children in the yard, training, not laughing, living their small lives in their small village that was now a small piece of his large empire. He passed the memorial stone, its names carved in black, his father's name among them. He did not stop. He did not look for Iruka. He did not visit the old apartment. He did not revisit anything. He reached the village gate. He rose into the air. He flew home. In his throne room, reviewing the afternoon's reports, he let himself think about it once. The market, the ramen, the boy who had been nothing, filled by something that was everything, the vessel and the occupant, the name that remained the same while everything behind it changed. Then he set the thought aside. He picked up the next report. Grain production in the land of Earth provinces, above projections by 8%. He made a note. He moved on. The world belonged to him. All of it. Every person, every building, every stone and river and mountain and star above. His. Won through power, maintained through power, justified by nothing except the simple truth that he was stronger than everything else alive and that made it his. He found this acceptable. The final challenger came on an evening in late autumn. Sasuke Uchiha, the last relevant member of a dead clan, carrying the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that Itachi's eyes had given him, carrying the curse of hatred that the Uchiha had always carried, carrying the specific madness of a boy who had lost everything and chosen revenge as his only remaining identity. He appeared at the palace gates, alone, unarmed, except for his eyes and his lightning and his hatred. He demanded an audience. He demanded a fight. He demanded the impossible, because he had learned that his brother had served the emperor and had died in the emperor's service, and Sasuke's tortured logic had processed this information and produced a conclusion. Kill the emperor, and everything would make sense again. Naruto received him in the throne room. He sat in his hover chair with his chin on his fist and watched the Uchiha walk the length of the room. Each step rigid with fury, his Sharingan blazing, his face locked in the specific expression of someone who has chosen death and is simply seeking the most meaningful version of it. The last Uchiha, Naruto said. I was wondering when you'd appear. You took my brother, Sasuke said. His voice was tight, a cord about to snap. You took him and you used him and you let him die. I gave your brother purpose in his final months, Naruto corrected. Something you failed to provide him for your entire shared existence. His death was peaceful. His life, at least the end of it, was productive. He was mine to kill. Naruto looked at the screaming boy, 17 years old, talented beyond measure, burning with a fire that was consuming him from the inside, and felt nothing, a flicker of interest, an assessment of capability, the consideration of whether this would last long enough to be worth remembering. Come then, Naruto said. He stood from his chair, his tail unwound, his eyes burned brighter. Show me what the Uchiha's hatred has produced. I'm curious whether it amounts to anything. Sasuke erupted. The Mangekyo activated fully, Amaterasu forming in his left eye, the black flames of eternal burning spewing forth in a wave that consumed the air between them. The fire was absolute. Anything it touched burned until nothing remained. It was the technique that could not be extinguished. Naruto raised his palm. Ki gathered, dense, concentrated, a shield of energy that existed outside the parameters of chakra-based techniques. The Amaterasu hit the shield and burned against it and found nothing to consume. Ki was energy itself without physical substance for the flames to grip. The black fire sputtered, failed, fell to the ground and burned harmlessly against the white stone floor. Sasuke's Susanoo manifested, smaller than Madara's, incomplete, purple-ribbed, forming around his body like armor rather than avatar. It was everything the boy had, every ounce of his hatred and his talent and his desperation channeled into a final form. He charged. The Susanoo's fist, massive, chakra-dense, carrying the weight of the last Uchiha's rage, swung at Naruto's head. Naruto caught it, one hand. His feet slid backward 3 inches on the stone and stopped. This, Naruto said, holding the Susanoo's fist, looking into Sasuke's red eyes through the chakra construct, is what the Uchiha's hatred amounts to. A fist I can hold with one hand. He squeezed. The Susanoo's hand crumbled, chakra dispersing, the construct breaking apart around his grip like sugar in water. The collapse cascaded upward, from hand to arm to shoulder, the entire Susanoo dissolving from the point of contact. Sasuke fell. Without his construct, without his flames, without anything left, he fell to the floor and landed on his hands and knees, breathing hard, his Sharingan still spinning in eyes that were beginning to bleed. Naruto stood over him. His shadow fell across the kneeling Uchiha like a judgment. "You're quite brave," Naruto said. "Stupid, but brave." "Kill me." Sasuke's blood from his overworked eyes streaked down his cheeks like tears. "Just kill me." "Why would I kill something useful?" Naruto asked. "Your eyes, your genetics, your potential, all wasted on revenge fantasies and childhood trauma." He crouched, eye level. "I killed the man who orchestrated your clan's fate. I employed your brother in his final days and gave him peace he never found elsewhere. And you, the last piece, crawl into my throne room begging for death because you cannot imagine a life defined by anything except loss." Sasuke's fists pressed against the stone. His body shook. "Pathetic," Naruto said. The word was flat, factual. "Stand up, leave this room. Report to Orochimaru's facility tomorrow morning. Dusk, you will serve my research division as a genetic donor and an enhancement subject. You will find purpose in service because you have proven incapable of finding it anywhere else. You would rather die. Yes, that's the pathetic part." Naruto stood. "I'm denying you the privilege. Death is earned. You have earned nothing except my contempt and my mild interest in your bloodline's potential." He returned to his hover chair. He sat. He crossed his legs. "Leave," he said. Sasuke knelt on the floor for 30 seconds. His blood dripped onto white stone. His hands trembled against the floor. Everything in his body screamed to attack again, to force the death he wanted, to make the Emperor kill him, to end it. He stood. He turned. He walked out of the throne room. He reported to Orochimaru's facility the next morning. It was the last challenge anyone offered. The world discussed it, whispered about the last Uchiha walking into the Emperor's palace and walking out alive with orders to serve. They discussed what it meant. They discussed what it said about the Emperor's power, about his judgment, about the specific mercy of being allowed to live when you had asked for death. They discussed these things for generations. Naruto was 16. He stood on the roof of his palace at midnight, the highest point of the highest building in the Frieza force's capital, a spire of white stone that pierced the night sky like a needle aimed at the stars. The wind was cool at this height. The empire spread below him, lights burning in the training grounds, in the administrative wings, in the research facilities. A constellation of civilization, ordered and productive, and his hands were behind his back. His tail moved in the night air, slow arcs, the rhythm of something at rest. His aura was contained, held close, a warmth against the wind, present without blazing. He looked up. The stars. The same stars that had hung above every planet he'd ever conquered or destroyed. The same patterns, slightly different from this position on this world, but the same fundamental structure. Hydrogen burning in the void. Light traveling for millions of years to reach his eyes. He thought about Goku. One last time, the monkey. The low-class warrior who had become something impossible. The man who smiled through battle, who offered mercy to enemies who deserved destruction, who kept getting stronger through some mechanism that Frieza had never identified and never replicated, the only being in any universe who had ever made him feel what it felt like to lose. Naruto looked at the stars and thought, if you were here, in this world, in this life, fighting me now, with everything I've become and everything I've learned, would it be different? He let the question sit. He did not answer it. He could not answer it with certainty, and that uncertainty was the only question remaining in any universe he occupied that he could not resolve through power alone. It did not frighten him, it interested him. He was 16 years old. He had conquered a world. He had ended every organization that threatened his empire. He had killed every significant obstacle placed between himself and absolute authority over an entire planet. He had women who chose him. He had subordinates who served him. He had a treasury that exceeded every nation's combined wealth and a military that could enforce his will across any distance, and a research apparatus that was pushing the boundaries of what this world thought possible. He had a long life ahead of him. His tail curled upward. The tip caught starlight. His aura breathed around him, a faint pulse of purple in the night, the heartbeat of something vast and ancient and alive in a body that was still young and still growing, and still finding the edges of what it could become. He raised his eyes to the largest star in the visible sky, a point of white fire that burned above the horizon like a beacon aimed at eternity, and said to the wind, to the stars, to the universe that had made him and unmade him and remade him in this form and in this world, I find this acceptable. His eyes closed. The empire breathed beneath him. The lights burned. The soldiers patrolled. The scientists worked. The women he had chosen slept in rooms that bore his seal. The fox in his belly rested with 9 tails curled. The world turned. The stars moved. The night deepened. And above it all, on the highest point in the wind, in the silence that belonged to him because everything belonged to him, Naruto Uzumaki stood alone and was complete. The clock had stopped ticking. There was nothing left to count down to.
And that is how one man, with no mercy, no hesitation, and absolutely zero chill, took everything. If this video destroyed you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because we are nowhere near done. There is so much more where this came from. See you in the next one.